All right. Well, welcome, Aaron, to the powwow with Myra.
Thanks for having me.
I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to meet you today.
Seriously, we've done a couple of deals now, and um, we finally get to meet each other.
Yeah.
So let's get started and tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and what do you do.
My name's Aaron Kiffe. I'm a mortgage lender. I help people finance their homes. Um, that's what I do. Born and raised in Austin, Texas. Uh, Family still lives in the same home my parents do from 1980 in Southwest Austin. Um, so yeah, I got roots there, and I love it. It's home to me.
Beautiful. So, wow, I can't even imagine now knowing that. Basically how you've seen Austin evolve to what it is now.
Yeah, it's grown substantially. Uh, the city's becoming dense too, which is interesting, right? There's actually city council meetings back in the 50s and 60s where they have it on the docket in the transcripts that we don't want to have a big interstate and a big loop because we want to keep it a small college town.
Mm,
And now it's grown to where it's busting out of its seams, right? And so it's growing dense, it's growing upwards, which is pretty interesting.
how does that make you as a native there? How does that make you feel?
Um, People are bringing money and opportunity, right, into the city. So there's good and bad, right? The city, the taxes, the property taxes on businesses and things like that are substantial. So if you're a mom and pop store or a restaurant like that, you're getting hammered. But as long as there's still the soul of the town is still there, it's not gone. So as long as that stays and it has that feel to it, then more the merrier, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, growing up, did you were you like a troublemaker, or were you more like
Yeah.
beautiful?
I was a jokester, troublemaker, uh, but I was a good kid, right? I mean, we nowadays, and a lot of things we did, we'd probably be ostracized, thrown in jail, who knows, right? I mean, we used to take our parents' cars out when we were like 12, 13 years old in the middle of the night. So thinking about things like that, vandalism, stupid stuff, your kids, right? Going
Mm-hmm.
around checking people's cars to see if they're unlocked, right? Dumb stuff. But nothing too crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Just being kids.
Just being kids, right? And that's some of that's good, right? I would guess, right? So you can test the boundaries of what you can get away with in society or what, you sooner or later, your parents can't save you, and you need to come to that realization as a kid and not when you're 25 years old, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Um, Learn those lessons, or understand the lesson sooner than later, I guess.
yeah, and we're kind of keeping kids in a
A bubble.
yeah, or like even when they're in their 20s, they're still children, right? So, not to say if you're 20 you're a child, but you know,
But there's some of that.
yeah, trying to extend that childhood out.
Mm.
So it was good growing up. I had three siblings. We're all 2 years apart. So my sister was born in 82, my brother was born in 84, I was born in 86, and then I have a younger sister born in 88. So by the time I was 10 years old, my sister was 14, 15. I was getting filtered down information through my brother when he's 12, 13 that I shouldn't have known at 10 years old.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like, so that kind of introduced me to things at an early age and helped shape me as I was always undersized, but I have a big mouth, or you could say so, because I was witty, and that's kind of how you make people laugh, right? But sometimes you run people the wrong way, and but being able to make people laugh was always a an introduction, or it gave me the ability to meet new people, and
and you were good at it,
yeah, you could say that
probably.
maybe.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Like a jokester, just
Yeah.
kind of like always kind of playing around with people and making jokes, and some people may get offended or some, whatever.
Yeah, and you push the boundaries a little bit to see what,
Yeah.
and that's where on the fringe, that gray area is where the good stuff is, right, in life, I think,
Mm,
right? I mean, same with like success and things like that. If you're working hard is one thing, but are you working hard and you're comfortable is another, right? So extending the boundary of what you're comfortable doing is where you're gonna grow. Like when you want to give up, when you think, I don't know, this doesn't feel like I'm a little scared. That's where you're gonna grow. Same thing with having conversations and meeting new people and going new places, traveling, doing all those things help expand you as a human being.
definitely. Wow, yeah, you definitely couldn't said it any better. I definitely agree with testing yourself, testing your boundaries, because I guess that's really the only way to grow, right? One, like stepping out of the comfort zone. So it sounds like you learned a few lessons at a young age. Do you have any specific ones that you think really shaped you, or any particular instances that you feel like it shaped you to the man you are today?
Well, I mean, my siblings had a big role in shaping me, right? I had an older brother. We shared a bedroom together. So my parents bought a home, and then they added on a game room and a master bedroom on the other side of the home
Mm,
when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. So me and my brother shared the old master. So we were always together. We're pretty close knit. So his friends coming and going and seeing, hearing what they're saying and stuff opened me up to a lot of things. So I had to grow up quick, you know what I
okay,
mean?
right.
And then playing sports with them, right? I was undersized. I was an athlete, but undersized and being, I like to be doubted, right? I like people to doubt me or say I can't do something. I want to overcome that, right? So always being the underdog, I like that scenario, right?
Mhm.
Because you have nothing to lose. That's what's
Right.
beautiful about that, right? If you
Right.
have nothing to lose, you're dangerous,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that, especially like if you don't care or abide by the rules that like others typically do, and you don't care and you don't go by the rules, and that gets very dangerous.
Yeah, well, why are the rules there? Sometimes there's reasons for rules, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes it's like, why is this rule here? Is it tradition, right?
Mhm.
Traditions are important, right? I think as the 21st century, we kind of forget that civilization is very thin, right?
Mm.
Like if your electricity stops working, right? If your water stops working, then you kind of realize how thin it is. But
Mhm.
so yeah, that's kind of my siblings had a major part. My parents weren't perfect, but they did a good job. They were baby boomers, right? So my dad's mother was a survivor of World War II. She was German, lived in Munich at the time.
Mm.
So she was kind of in the heart of it. She was born, I believe, in 1929. So by
Okay.
time 44, 45, she's, 15, 16 years old and she survived that. Um, so that scarcity mentality was definitely bred into my father, right? So trying to overcome that there's not enough, right? When you're at the table and we have two pizzas and there's four kids, right? It's like you better eat quickly or you're not gonna eat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Those little
right.
things that you
Yes.
kind of overlook as a kid, but those things help, all those things help to shape me.
Yeah, yeah. So, in school, did you play sports? You said you were
Hmm.
an athlete. What sports did you play?
I played baseball growing up and then football, and then in high school baseball kind of ruined it for me because like track season was in the spring and baseball everybody's hitting in a batting cage and I'm thinking I could be getting faster and stronger right now. Why I'm over here hitting off a tee in a batting cage? This doesn't make sense. So I quit baseball and just focused on football and track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran that 100-meter dash. It was pretty fast.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see that. You definitely do look like an athlete.
especially
And
for a white boy, right? You go to an all black track meet, right, where most of the kids are black and I'm the only white boy there, and then you smoke them all. I mean, it was there's nothing like a 100-meter dash.
Mm,
It's one of those events. It's like adrenaline rush for sure.
yeah. Running came to me a little bit later in life. I was into sports in school, but I never really liked track. I tried it once and that was it for me because I just felt like I was like just running versus playing a sport, right? Because usually it was that or play a sport, and playing a sport there was like more like to it, right? So um yeah, like I think for a while I kind of like tried avoiding running, and then until I got to working out again, then that's when I was like kind of re regain my love with running, I guess you could say.
Do you run long distances now?
Yeah,
Like
like longer
what's the
period,
average?
like 30 minutes, 20
So
minutes, 30
4 or
minutes,
5 miles?
under 4. Yeah.
What's the longest you can go before you're like, okay, this is my feet are hurting and my toes are chafed and things like that?
Well, I will say that the most I've ran, it's a half marathon. So that's gonna be
13 miles?
13, yeah,
Yeah.
13 point whatever is it?
I've never done that before.
Yeah, and with, I don't know, I thought I was training at the time. Now when I think about it, it's like I really did no training.
Yeah.
Like, my training was not great, but I survived it.
Just getting thrown into something like that is you can't really train. I mean, you can train for
I
it,
signed
but
up for it, that's the thing, you know?
yeah, and then you have a deadline, then it's like you got to show up.
Right,
And that's what we were talking about earlier. It's like having obligations, even though you're like, I want the weekend to be wide open. I don't want to have any responsibilities. I can just hang out. But also having obligations where you have to show up is important because then you gave somebody word and you have to meet it, right?
right, right, exactly. You're like, well, I you kinda decide to if you're gonna be a person of with that sticks to your word or not.
Right. And if you break your word too many times, nobody,
Oh, okay.
nobody wants to deal with you at that point.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole every action has a reaction, I guess, and it's just sometimes though they're minimal and sometimes they're not.
Right. Just like decisions.
Yes.
You think a decision's small and it probably is, but you do that decision enough times and it compounds over time, just like money or anything.
Well, think about it. Like you do the same, say, habit every day for 6 years. That's not gonna not do nothing.
Yeah. And if is it a good habit or a bad habit?
Well, yeah, and then it usually one thing leads to another. Works both ways, right? Negative and positive. You do something bad habit every day, it'll usually roll over to other also bad habits every day, and that just compounds, right? But
Whether you know it or not,
exactly.
and whether it feels impactful or not, right?
Right. And then same thing with the positive, right? You start doing one thing at a time that's in a positive direction. Usually that'll lead to other positive habits. And then in 6 years, that's not nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I when I was young, I was a sprinter, and then I started running uh, Town Lake. There's a 3 mile loop between. They call it Ladybird Lake. I'm a local. I call it Town Lake. Um, uh, Mopac to Lamar is 3 miles. So I started running that, and I couldn't quite get it.
Get what?
Like the 3 miles without stopping, and
Oh,
then I would
okay.
walk a little bit,
Okay.
and then eventually I got to where 3 miles isn't bad. Let's stretch it to four,
Mm.
right? And now I do a 7 mile loop probably 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow.
So it gets me high,
Mm,
and it's like I don't know if you've felt that before,
mm-hmm.
um, but I don't drink anymore, so I got to find like some sort of stress relief in my life.
Okay.
Uh, so that's one thing I've taken on is running because I can like kind of put music on or put a
Mhm.
podcast or put book on tape and kind of lose my mind in the running and the pain, right? You concentrate on the pain,
Mhm.
the breathing,
The
and
breathing.
you push through it. So
Right. Yes. Well, it's awesome. You're channeling basically your mind from going into, okay, well, I'm not drinking or, whatever. So now you're channeling over to like running, which is probably just channeling into probably other great things that I'm sure we'll get talking about here shortly.
Yeah, I mean,
Aaron, quick, weird request. Your coffee cup, can you either like put
shout
it
out to Starbucks.
shout out Starbucks? Yeah, right
You-
there is fine.
Or on this side, even if you want
Yeah.
to get it
That's what
closer
But if
to.
you're righty, it's like weird and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
is that better?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It
cool.
was just in the shot, like covering your like chest.
Huge manly chest. Only
You got to show it.
only doesn't compare to your dog's chest. That dog's chest is massive.
Hmm.
He must be lifting aggressively.
Oh, he has. Yeah, he just had his.
That's just his winter coat, and he's shedding it off, guys. Okay. All
It's
right.
like, leave him alone. Yeah, no, he is actually getting bigger. And he's an old man now. He's like 8 years old.
Yeah. He's a very handsome dog.
Yeah, he is. He's adorable.
He is.
And and he's such like a love bug. Like,
Yeah.
and he's so slow, like even if people that are maybe afraid of dogs, like you'd never be afraid of him because he's just so slow and he just comes and like loves you, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Felt that immediately when I walked in.
yeah, he's our greeter.
So tell me a little bit about you. Let's switch this around.
Mm,
Uh, what are you siblings? Where'd you grow up? You speak Spanish.
yeah. So I
Did you
speak
learn that as a child?
Yeah, so basically I just kind of picked it up because it was the house language, right? So I was born in Denver and we lived there until I was 9. And then when I was 9, my parents decided to move here to Texas. At the time one of my aunts lived here, so they kind of came here and they were like, yeah, there's like jobs and um, I don't know, just a different future, I guess, that kind of aligned with what they already kind of wanted to do a little bit, I guess. So then we moved here. I hated that move. Um, so then that I was about 9 at the time, and then um, been here since. Yeah.
And what'd your dad do? Or what'd your parents do for a living?
So my mom in Denver, she worked in restaurants, and she was either the manager and also the waitress. It was a small restaurant called Jalapenos.
Have you waited tables before?
No. And have I?
Yes.
No. And so that's what she did. And my dad was in construction. And then coming over here, my dad's still in construction.
Yeah.
And then she started cleaning homes with my aunt. And then they eventually started getting like more and more homes, and so now she still does that to today. She cleans homes, and but she has her own. She has her own basically clients, you would say.
Clientele.
Yeah, and so I mean, I
Siblings?
guess yeah. So I'm the second oldest of 5. So there's 4 sisters, and then the last one is the baby boy. So 4
Wow.
girls and 1 boy.
I bet there wasn't a dull moment in that house. Huh?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's crazy now thinking back because like the age differences of where we all were, at the time, like so when my brother was born, I was 15. Yeah, I was turning 15 or 14. I was turning 15. And he was actually born the same day of my birthday.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And
Or not.
yeah, yeah, pretty cool. I
Cool.
think
Yeah.
we always had a really good. We've always had a very good relationship. I would say. I don't know. I think I probably spoiled him a little bit too much
Yeah.
until Madison came along. No, but so yeah, it's my older sister. She was so if I was 14, she was 18. So if my sister was 18, myself was 14. My other sister was like 9 because we're all like kind of like 4 years apart.
Okay.
But then that's where the biggest gap is because my sister was 9, and then I think my little sister was like 4. They're like 6 years difference or 3. and then my brother. So there's like large gaps.
The reason I asked if you waited tables, because I think that's something that all people should do,
Yeah.
just because it helps you multitask when multiple people are
Mm.
wanting things, and you have to remember what they want. You have to deal with people who aren't happy, because there's always going to be somebody who's not happy, right? And then just being able to introduce yourself and, hey, how can I help you, right? So just is like, if I were a parent and I had a 15, 16-year-old, I would be like, okay, we're going to go to the restaurant and we're going to get you a busing job and you're going to wait tables and you're going to learn how to talk to people.
Hmm.
Because a lot of days, and like nowadays, kids don't know how to talk to people, look people in the eye, shake a hand, things like that.
Yes, I agree with that. Um, and I've heard that before actually by I don't know. So I've heard that along the way that everybody should wait tables at least once in their lifetime.
Yeah, it just
Um,
helps you deal with people and
yeah.
like multiple things. Hey, I need some ketchup. Hey, all right, and like having that in your mind. Okay, I gotta go do this, and this.
And then on the flip side, once maybe, if you do get move on to something else, you'll be able to appreciate like people that provide service like that,
Right,
that
and
that get paid by tips.
right,
And
and
so
treat
in a
them with respect,
sense, yes,
even when the surface isn't great. Right.
exactly. Right, right. So I was like both sides
Yeah,
of the coin. Yeah, that I've never thought about that, but yeah.
because those communication skills are really vital,
Mm,
right? To being able to handle any situation when it arises,
yeah.
and being able to apply yourself. Because a lot, like, I deal with so many people who are putting their kids through school or whatever the case may be. And it's like, why are they going to school? Before we go spend $80,000 on a college education, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
Right? Especially if you're taking on debt,
Right.
right? Because debt is a weapon. It can be leveraged just like a car jack can lift up your car so you can change the flat tire. But if you get under the tire and the car jack collapses, you're dead, right?
Mhm.
Same thing with debt. It's leverage, but it's dangerous. So you got to be aware of what you're doing. It's like you're going to nursing school. Have you ever visited with a nurse and gone a 12-hour shift or even an 8-hour shift with a nurse, right? To see if this is really what you want to do?
Right.
And usually the answer is no. Didn't even think about that. So it's like we have access to endless information, even though the past 2.5 years have been weird with nothing seems real anymore. But in reality, we have endless information at our fingertips, but people are becoming less intelligent, less able to think, less able to access actual facts or whatever, right?
Yes. I agree 100% with you on that. And I think maybe the issue is that we everybody kind of skipped a step, like it's kind of like when building a house, you got to make sure you build a strong foundation, and if your house is bigger, then you have to, make sure the foundation goes deeper. So I think people have forgotten how to think for themselves, and how to, especially nowadays, that maybe at some point you had to pay and you would get all this information, and now there's so much information you don't know, what to believe, right? Or what to believe, right? Because you don't know how to do the research necessary to come up with your own conclusion, because there's always going to be two sides no matter what. I mean, that's just a life law.
Right.
Like there's always going to be two sides.
There's two stories and then there's the truth.
And so people are struggling because they don't know who to follow. They don't know. They hear something, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And then they hear something else, "Okay,
That
well, that
makes
makes
sense.
sense." So then, you're confused. That causes chaos, right? So really the step is you missed a step. You forgot how to think for yourself and how to come up with your own conclusions based on the information that you have, because that's the only thing you can go by, which is the information that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It's a very interesting time to be alive. like the geopolitical aspects, the monetary system, right? We've been
Mm-hmm.
printing trillions of dollars for a long time, got away with it a long time. Someday those chickens are going to come home to roost. Now, what does that
Mm.
look like? I don't know, right? But I would be hedged in either direction or multiple directions, right?
Yeah.
So, what does that look like? We could talk about that if you want.
Yeah.
Um, so,
What do you think?
what do I think about what?
What do you think? Where do you think this is going? Like, or where do you think this is going to take us? Since like we know we've printed so much money.
Well, they stopped the world's economy, right? Think about that. They stopped the world's heartbeat. They shut down all people with small jobs, all those people who have businesses, right? They said, no, you can't go. And then so demand for goods and services, supply of goods and services drop demand. Now, I don't know if that would drop, right? Demand's always there. People always want more stuff, want more, better stuff. Human nature, right, is always to desire more. Um, Now, you could argue that on the other side and say, well, I'm content. I don't need more. Okay, you're special, right? The vast majority of people in India, right? They want electricity, they want cars, they want air conditioning. What does that look like, right? What is China coming online with how many billion people, right? Over a billion people. So those they stopped the world's economy and then they printed a bunch of money to try to cover it
Hmm.
over. Then they dropped the price of money, right? How can you have a capitalist system when the price of money is set by some people at a desk in the Federal Reserve building in Washington, D.C., right? So they dropped the price of money, printed a bunch of it, right? That money started flowing into things, housing for one, right? The stock market for two. Now you have a case where they said, oh, inflation isn't transitory, right? It's not going to go away. It looks like it's sticking. We need to raise the price of money. So now they've risen the price of money, right? And now everything's trying to find its price because that's what prices are. It's information, right? On goods and services, demand and supply. And now that's why we see these fluctuations in the housing market is because of those things, right? You print a bunch of money, you swing the price of the money, and you're trying to find an equilibrium. So that's where that's happening. Now, how did this pans out? I don't know, right? I think housing will be okay. Did some people are going to get hurt if they bought last year and they went 50K over asking and they bought it with cash? Yeah, they might be underwater in time, right?
What kind of time frame do you think we're talking about?
I mean, they might be underwater right now, right?
Mm.
If you bought last spring but your realtor should have told you, hey, you could be in the short term, right? Prices might fluctuate. You could be underwater, but you plan on being in the home 5 to 7 years, right? This isn't a 2 years you're going to want to sell. Okay, then it makes sense. You'll be okay either way, right? So having those
Right.
conversations with your realtor, financial advisor, loan officer are important. So will that, I think there's going to be certain segments of the country that are affected more than others, right? As people want to leave those places and come to Texas or Florida or Tennessee. I don't see those migration patterns changing, right? I would expect them to speed up. Then you have the geopolitical onshoring of manufacturing, right? With the whole COVID lockdowns, we figured out that, hey, we probably need some of these vital goods and services to be produced here, or at least with allies that we know are going to be allies in 10, 20, 30 years.
Right.
So those patterns are going to continue. Texas had the largest export, uh, largest amount of exports out of any state,
Mm.
right? So you think about,
Of goods.
right, and services.
Right.
Uh, if you think about like Tesla, they're manufacturing, right? So you're going to see manufacturing jobs coming back. That's going to set up a base to the housing market because those jobs they haven't even started coming to Texas, right? Even though the plans for the microchips with Samsung, right, and things like that,
Mhm.
those jobs haven't even come, let alone the families and the people who need to cut their lawns and wash their cars and service their homes and all those things, right? So
Right.
that's going to set a base. Now, will that be the same in Sacramento or San Jose or, you know,
Right.
Seattle? I don't know, right? But I think we'll be okay. I think the war drums are beating right now
Mm.
pretty heavily, and I think that's a distraction, right? To look away from the monetary policy, look away from the politics and the people who've made these decisions on our behalf, and look at the enemy, right? Whether that's a Hegelian dialect where you got two sides of the same coin, right? And they're really, it's all that's a conspiracy theory, right? But whether that pans out, right? I don't know. Do we
Mm.
go to war? I would expect if there's serious cracks in the monetary system, they will go to war just to justify the stock market crashing or anything else. Maybe the dollar reserve currency gets replaced,
Mm.
right? Things like that.
Mhm.
What will that do for our living standards? I don't know.
Yeah. I guess that's the beauty of the thing. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was listening earlier to actually some videos about. I think I started with. I was learning about the SVB bank going
Hmm.
bankrupt and basically what that means, and I don't know. I was just kind of digging into that information, and but they were saying something really interesting that I hadn't really even thought about because I guess I'm not in really like the corporate world myself, so I don't think about that on the daily. But they were saying how um, right now, basically, it's a market correction because a lot of businesses that were thriving because just everybody was just spending, right? A lot of them,
Or because they're getting money at 0% interest, and right. I mean,
yes,
that played a part
well,
in all that too.
right, yes, exactly. So
Multifaceted
what's
issue.
what was happening is, you have these startups, right? And I guess it's I'm gonna say it to the best of my ability. Like I was literally just listening to this today, so I'm gonna try to explain what I got out of it. But basically, these corporations, they have stockholders, and so their books are looking good, right? And I think in 2020 or no 2021, the stockholders were like, "Hey, you've made some profits, like, you should share some with us." So then what they would do is they would go to the bank and the bank would kind of evaluate how much that company was worth. And so everything in the books looked good, right? So then they would get like millions of dollars at a like 2% interest, like really, really good market basically. And so what happened is they would give shareholders or give them they would basically buy themselves more stock and they would give out bonuses. So and they would write that off. So in the books if you're writing out expenses but you're not reinvesting it in the company itself or say employees to grow it, if you're not investing it in something that's going to give a return, you're basically just spending it in liabilities. It's the same thing as going to the store and buying a Gucci belt, right?
Right. With a credit card.
With a credit card, especially, right? So you're writing off these expenses, and you're in its expenses on non like income producing
Right.
stuff. So now what happens is how does the government make money? By taxing, right? So if they're writing these stuff off but they're not investing it and people are keeping it in their pockets, so now they're not really paying those taxes, and that's why we come short basically every year. now. Part
Well,
of it anyways.
yeah,
It's so complex, but
yeah, it is complex.
it's like that was one big factor. So everybody's getting bonuses, everybody's getting.
Well, they were a healthy bank. Okay. They had so much
Oh,
money,
yeah.
right? That they're like, what do we do with this money? They had $90 billion that they put in long-term treasuries. Okay. 10-year treasuries, meaning I put the money in there and I think it was 1.97% interest, but that doesn't come due until 10 years down the road. Now you can go on the market and sell it, right? But if rates go up, the price of your bond goes down. So let's say you buy a bond for $1 and I will give you $1.97, or not $1.97, it would be, I'll give you 1.97 cents after annually for 10 years. After 10 years, you have like $10 additional in interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the price of the bond, if the interest rates go up and now the interest rate's at 4 and you have to sell it on the market, you need to take a 50% haircut off the price of your bond. So now your dollar bond is worth 50 cents. Okay. Now, if you're you should mark that to market weekly, monthly, to know your books are healthy if you actually did go on the market and sell the bond. They didn't do that, right? They weren't marking to market. So then they went and that's one element, right? Now, should they have timed, they bought in 2001 at the very top or bottom, depending on how you want to look at it, of the interest rate, right? Interest rates were low as they've ever been, right? And they put $90 billion into long-term treasuries. Now, should they have structured that and bought $9 billion over every 3 months, by 9 billion over 10, over a 3-year period or something like that, right? Because then rates would have gone up and they would have been buying across a time period, dollar
Mm-hmm.
cost averaging, just like into the stock market, right? But they didn't do that. That's one element of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have VC companies, so venture capital firms that would go and they would fund startups, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you pick 10, we give all 10 based upon what we think they could do. We'll give them $10 million, $20 million, $40, $50 million. One of them's going to hit probably, right? Or one out of 20, 30, whatever.
Right.
But then that startup would take that money, the VC, right, would fund the startup. The startup would take that money and then go put it back into the bank to fund their payroll, to fund all of their banking needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a kind of a circle, right, where the bank would lend the VCs a portion to fund, right, leveraging to the VCs so the VCs could fund the startups would come and they would make their deposits. Their executives would put money in the bank, take loans out against their stocks or whatever, right? Then in 2002, the price of money goes up, right? That slows down. IPOs really, all initial public offerings have slowed down. So now the VCs aren't funding startups like they were 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So now you have that circle of money has stopped flowing. And then that caused rumors that, hey, we need to go fund more money. Silicon Valley Bank released, hey, we're going to offer public backing. We're going to sell shares of their bank to raise capital. That got out that, hey, they might be in trouble. And it was actually Seeking Alpha released an article in December stating this, that, hey, this could be, they could be insolvent. And that was 4 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So they saw it come, like the writing was on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have a publication, journalist writing article, and you're shareholders and people shorting your stock, they should know, right, about it.
Right.
So you have a combination of things, right? And then you have collateralized debt obligations where everybody owes other people money and they're leveraged and insured, and it's a cluster, right? And
Y-
nobody knows who owns what. And I might owe you, but you really owe them who owe me, right?
Oh
So then you see
gosh.
capital start to collapse, right? Because everybody thought they had, because your liability is somebody else's asset, right? So
Hmm.
that's where that gets crazy. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And that could, and really that's what the Fed wants, right? That's why you raise the price of money,
Right.
right? Because then you have things like that, capital collapses, all those people, they're not spending money, they're not buying Gucci belts anymore,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So all or whatever, right? They're not buying second homes, they're not buying
Liabilities.
right, they're not buying vacations.
Or yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's slowing down inflation, right? And that's what the Fed wants. Now, do they want to collapse the economy? Yeah, I don't know about that, right? I wouldn't. You can't always think that your interest aligned with somebody else's, right? So
Right.
that's an assumption made all the freaking time,
Mm.
is that their interest aligned with ours and we're seeking the same thing. That because that's not always the case.
Yeah, that's definitely goes back into kind of how to make choices, because at that point then you're basically waiting till something comes and saves you, or somebody does what they need to do.
Nobody's coming to save.
So, versus saying, "Hey, like what do I need to do right now so that I can be better prepared to whatever comes?" Just being better prepared. Like, being a finance guy, like what would you tell,
Well,
you know
what's your survival number is something I always tell people. So, what does it take for you to operate the household budget? What is that number? Do you know what that is? Your Netflix, your car insurance, your average gasoline spend, your groceries averaged out. What is that number? That's your survival number.
Mm,
Is it 5K? Is it 10K? Is it 15K? I don't know, 2K, right? Depends on where you're at in your life, right? Because your
right.
earning potential usually peaks around 45, 50. Right? That's another thing we could talk about that's
Mm,
interesting, because you could look at demographic information for races and think there's a disparity here. We need to fix it. But the average Hispanic American, what is their age compared to average Japanese person?
right.
Right? A Japanese American is probably 45, 50, the average age, where a Hispanic is probably in their 20s.
Hmm.
So when you look at those things, you're not comparing apples to apples. Right? But to get back to what we were talking about, which was
um Basically how to
survival
prepare
number,
survival.
right? So you want 3 to 6 months of survival number in a savings account. It's not there to earn money. It's not there to make a return. It's not there to invest. It's not there for any other purpose than if something goes wrong, you can live for 6 to 12 months using that money.
Hmm.
I take thousands of applications, right, by this point in my career. And it's always dumbfounding when I see somebody investing in crypto or something. And I'm like, you don't even have $2,000 in a savings account, but you got 3 grand in crypto? Like, if that goes to zero, are you able to deal with that? If you're able to deal with that mentally, then
Right.
so be it. And you're prepared. Cool. All right. Right.
Right.
But it's things like that. Right. So that's the first step.
Okay.
Once you have that, right, then you can look at buying a home, dollar cost average into the stock market, maxing out 401ks, right? 401k is great, but it's not like you need other buckets, because the government is coming for that bucket, trust me, right?
Yeah.
They are coming for that sooner or later, right?
Mhm.
Just knock off 40, 50% because they're going to tax you on that. If you think taxes are going up or down in the future, I would guess they're going to go up, right?
Mm.
So we've been living beyond our means for a long time. We've had the ability to do that. Sooner or later, that's going to change, whether by choice or by force.
Right.
So that would be the survival number, exercise, right? Also having, if you're a household, having a team, because you can't be following a budget and being disciplined in your spending and knowing where the money going, and then your spouse is just frivolously spending money and buying Gucci belts. Bring back
Mhm.
to Gucci belts.
Yeah.
So it's like baby steps,
Yeah.
right?
That what you just said is crucial. I think. Because especially nowadays, like the number of like amount of divorces is like at all time high, right? Especially after COVID. I think that there's a lot of divorce applications after COVID.
Yeah, if you're stuck in the house with somebody for a long time, yeah. Or it brought you closer together.
Yeah, seriously, right? So, but that being said, I mean, aside from that, I think that's a big topic nowadays. I feel like I hear that topic, or it comes across my ears quite a bit, and so I think what you just said is like crucial. It's part of it because you have to. You just mentioned like you gotta like work with your team. It's a team. Um,
And you need to know your stats of your teammate,
mm,
right? Because if they're hitting 100%, right, or whatever average, like if they're poorly, they're not performing, you probably need to have them hitting eighth or ninth and not clean up, right? If you
mhm,
make a
mhm.
baseball analogy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But in order to see where we want to go, you have to see where you're at currently. So avoiding it isn't gonna change anything, right? You can avoid reality. You cannot avoid the consequences of reality, is what Ayn
Mhm.
Rand, if you ever heard of Ayn Rand, author lady.
I don't think so.
Good author, great book, Atlas Shrugged. If you
Okay.
haven't read it, it's about 1,200 pages, so it's a long one. Most people just Google it, read the synopsis, and then make their own judgment, but you should read it. Anyway,
Yeah.
I've read it. We have it. I can give it to Myra.
Okay.
yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took a while to get through, but
Yeah, there's some parts in it that are a little slow, but
yeah.
like the Francisco when he talks about money, when he's at that party and they say money's the root of all evil.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes on a tangent and it's beautiful. It makes me want to cry when I
Mm.
read it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all should check just that pull that up. You could Google that and find it. And just we could just read a couple of
Yeah.
the first sentences. It's unbelievable. She grew up in the Soviet Union uh, when it early 30s. So when it was really gulags and Stalin. I mean, it was crazy. They stole her dad's business. I mean, it's just nuts.
So you think that money is the root of all evil?
Mm.
Have you ever asked what is the root of money? Oh.
Yeah, money is the tool of exchange which can't exist unless the goods produced and the men able to produce them. Money is the material shape of the principle that men who wish to deal with one another must deal by trade and give value for value. Money the tool is not the tool of the moochers who claim your product by tears or the looters who take it from you by force. Money is made possible only by men who produce. Is this what you consider evil?
Wow.
When you accept money in payment for your effort, you do so only in the conviction that you will exchange it for the product and effort of others. It is not the moochers or the looters who give you value to money, not the ocean of tears, not all the guns in the world can transform those pieces of paper in your wallet into bread you will need to survive tomorrow. Those pieces of paper, which should have been gold, are the token of honor, your claim upon the energy of men who produce. Your wallet is your statement of hope that somewhere in the world around you there are men who will not default on that moral principle which is the root of money. Is that what you consider evil? Have you ever looked for the root of production? Take a look at an electric generator and dare tell yourself that it was created by the muscular effort of unthinking brutes. Try to grow a seed of wheat without the knowledge left to you by men who had discovered it for the first time. Try to obtain your food by means of nothing but physical motions, and you'll learn that man's mind is the root of all goods produced and all of the wealth that has ever existed on earth. I don't want to keep going, but it's powerful. Like it'll
Wow.
make you cry. And the context of which he says that is like a very nice, eloquent dinner party, right? And
Right.
they think he's a flamboyant playboy who's just fucking off his dad's money, who he grew up as a copper miner, right? So he came from very wealthy means. And they're all, elites, it's a good book. But anyway,
I am blown
you should
away.
just read that speech. Just read that. It's powerful.
I'll read. Yeah, I'll read that. I'll definitely read the whole book. Um, that's
I don't think you will.
I I that's one of my goal. It's been one of my goals, and sometimes I've been off it, and I come back to it, but it's to getting to read more. So I've been doing really good for like the past 2 months.
Yeah, when you read in the morning, afternoon, at night.
Um, so sometimes when I wake up, like sometimes I'll get up like at 5 in the morning, and when I do, and I'm not, if I'm sleepy, I'll listen to my body and I'll go back to bed. But sometimes, like, because my daughter still wakes me up, and usually that's around one of the times she does. So if I feel good when I get up and I feed her and she goes back to sleep, I'll get up and then I kind of set myself up in I have like my little corner, and I make my coffee and I just sit there and just read.
What are you reading right now?
Rick's and Gracie. It's a jujitsu book. It's his life. But
Oh,
I nor
okay.
but
Cool.
but normally I'm reading some sort of like self-development type book.
Yeah.
So like that
That's good
that's
stuff.
like amazing, because
It's
that
a
kind of
novel,
grounds
but
it.
it's political. You'd have to check it out, but I wouldn't try to cut the corners on it just because it's so in deep that you can't really read somebody else's opinion of it. You got to go read it yourself. But
Mm,
I try to read at least 10 to 20 pages a day, usually in the morning. And I think that helps with your vocabulary, right? So you're more articulate.
right.
Uh, I like to tell my team that, hey, build a library and act like you're reading a book just so your kids think that you read books, right? So they start picking up reading. So
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. So, funny thing, when I was growing up, or when I was like a teen or whatever, it's kind of like when I remember it mostly. But I think throughout like growing up, I would always like say whatever it is that I thought I was saying, and like I just remember people like kind of giggling and saying like, "What did she say?" Kind of like in a playing around kind of tone, but it kind of stuck with me. I'm like, they don't understand what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And I don't know what it is or what it was. And I didn't really think about that until like, I don't know, like years like recently, actually. I was like thinking back at that, but I think unconsciously I was always kind of trying or being aware of it and trying to like improve it, but it was because I felt like, so I feel like it is important, but I think I started kind of looking for that because I would be confused, as of why are people not understanding what I'm saying, you know? So
was it because of an accent or was it
no,
because you
no,
weren't
this is in
speaking English?
Spanish. Like this is even Spanish and Spanish. This was even in Spanish. Like,
Hmm.
you know, um,
Do you ever listen to Jim Rome? Yeah.
yeah.
He talks about a study they did in prisons where violent offenders was directly correlated with the size of their vocabulary, right?
Yes, I've heard
Because
him talk about that.
you can't.
That's so funny.
vo- it's one of those things where it's the depth of the vocabulary, right? if you say something's, oh, it was nice, it was very nice, or it was opulent, right? There's a difference between that that adds a whole layer of depth, not only in your understanding, but your actual view of the world, right? So if you have a limited vocabulary, you'll have a limited view of the world. So it's like that's another thing that, and sometimes reading's boring and it's not good. You don't get into it and you got to shut it down. But there's other times it's like you got to get 10, 15 pages in, and then you hit a part where you just stimulate your mind and you just, I don't want to stop turning the page and you just want to read for 5 hours.
Yeah, I think it's like there's got to be a moment in life where you want to seek out for this information, because like once I started
When do you think that occurred with you?
um
Like where you want to seek knowledge and you want to grow and you,
I would say it was like 2019. I would say 2019 would be when it really mostly started. Um
and when did you get licensed as a realtor?
I was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got into listening to podcasts. Like not I actually I would rather be outside playing with a ball than being inside reading a book. I was kind of like that person kind of growing up, right? So when I started seeking for this information, I think I started listening to podcasts. Um
And they'll reference a book and then you go check it out.
Specifically Joe Rogan. And he started bringing in, like, I would even listen to the, like, some of the MMA interviews he would do. And I think I would avoid him, but I think once I didn't press pause and I started hearing somebody's like life story with some fighter, and I really love the story. I'm like, here I am avoiding these like MMA, episodes, but they're really good, right? So I started, I guess, learning about other people, and eventually he would get people talking about like basically like a little bit of self-development, I guess is kind of what I started understanding. But um we were also having a lot of fun, I think, at the time. We were having we were having fun, and um we were in it was I remember it was 2019, December 2019. We were in Indiana with Logan's family celebrating Christmas and stuff. So no, we're having fun. I remember coming back home, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was so fat.
Really?
I was 50 pounds like heavier.
Do you have a picture?
Oh yeah.
Can we pull it up?
Oh god. I'm sure Logan can find plenty. Oh gosh. Look, I'm not even photogenic. Like these pictures are terrible. I'm sure Logan can find someone. I don't mind sharing. Um, but anyways, I remember looking at myself in the mirror and my cheeks were like so puffed up that I started seeing like my eyes were starting to get like a little smaller, and I was like, oh, like that scared me. I was like, what have I done? Like how did I allow myself to get to this point?
Slowly and then all of a sudden.
Yes. Yes, I'm telling you, I felt it. Like that day, I started crying and I was like, I just couldn't believe I had allowed myself to look like that.
So how many people get to that point and then just say, I guess there's nothing I can do about it,
Mm,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So
Because it's easy to
that's
do.
commendable that you saw that you were getting overweight and you stopped it and reversed it.
Yes. And recently I had like very within that time frame, I had listened to a podcast with Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Joe Rogan. She was in his podcast, and she talked about like even like stats about just parents having children while they're overweight, and it was like proven that these fat cells are passed on to your kids, and not that they won't be able to lose weight or whatever, but it may be harder
Yeah.
for them to lose weight. And so like understanding that and then coming home and seeing my face and we had just talked about like starting to get pregnant to have a baby. So this is 2019 right into 2020. This is 2020 now and I'm like we're probably going to start trying to have a baby by the end um like by the fall. We're going to start trying. So me knowing that I got this immense fear. I'm like I cannot pass this on to my child and I can't believe, I allowed myself to get to this point because I've always been kind of like athletic, you would say, like always playing sports. We were always playing something, and going to the gym. There was a time we were having too much fun and we were skipping those gym days, which led to that.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
how long between you that December of 19 until like you were pretty much at your body weight right now? Or your son, like, was it a 6-month deal and like, okay, I got it back in line in 6 months or 12 months, or what do you think?
I would say about a year to where I am at now, because even now I'm like right pre I got pregnant, which was, or I'm about the same or even now. But
But that's pretty impressive because then you had a child and now you are back
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So you had to like yo-yo back and
Oh
forth.
gosh, look at that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not crazy,
Oh God.
right? It's not crazy. It's not that bad, but 50 pounds is a lot. But I can see what it was. Your face was round, more round, for sure.
I mean, the clothes. Yeah, I mean, I have worse pictures or pictures where it shows more. What?
So what
Um.
did you do?
Oh,
Tell me.
so we signed up for Orange Theory, and that's when I started saying I got to get up in the morning at 7 a.m. because I didn't want to get up in the mornings. It was nice, whatever. So
what is Orange Theory?
Orange Theory was, it's
Like
d-
group
a
training,
group training. Basically, you go in instead of it's about an hour
high
long,
intensity,
very much cardio focused. You do lift some weights,
and you want to
definitely.
stay in a certain zone. I've never done it,
You're
but I know
coached,
it's good.
right? So you have a coach that's kind of guiding a workout. So you basically just show up and you do what they tell you to do. And it's amazing because everybody's doing the same thing, especially if there's a good coach. And we had one of the like some of the best coaches, um, like hands down amazing, where they just kind of bring up, just the energy and everybody's doing the same thing and it's high intensity. And you're not gonna you want to give up or you want to slow down, but you don't because the person next to you is doing the same
Push you.
thing. Their face, they're struggling, so you don't want to like stop, right? Versus if you're working out by yourself, you're like, well,
Yeah, I did pretty well.
yeah, it
I
is
stopped.
good. Yeah. So
But think about that though, right? You had a coach, you showed up, and you did what they told you to do, right? How simple is that?
yeah.
So, like any aspect of your life, spirituality, physicality, financial, get somebody who's way ahead of you, right? Where you want to be, have them mentor you. You show up and you do what they tell you to do because it got them. Now, will that always work? Maybe not, right? But it's probably better than the path you're on currently,
Right.
right?
100%.
So, just like a realtor, right? Find the best realtor you can find
Mhm.
and say, I want to help you grow your business and learn through the process of helping you grow your business,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
I met my mentor, uh, showed up to a breakfast with him. He says, I made $1 million last year. Not to be braggart, right? I'm not a braggart. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you I made $1 million last year and I have a set process. Every day I do a certain thing. I have a certain task I do, a theme of the day. Every single day I try to complete that task to the best of my ability.
Mm.
I have a roadmap. And I'm like, okay, I'm joining this guy. He knows what he's doing, right? So that it triggered in me like,
Yeah.
hey, I showed up and I did what they told me to do, even when
Right.
it's uncomfortable, even when you don't want to do it.
And you understand basically, yes, what you're saying. It's well, congratulations for one, and for your great success. And it shows really because
I didn't make $1 million. I'm saying he told me
oh,
that.
he told
Yeah, I've
you.
never made $1 million in a year.
Okay.
Now I have $1 million net worth.
Okay.
Now that's conservatively estimate with equity in my properties, right?
Right.
So I'm not a millionaire, and I don't like to fake those numbers or lie to myself because you're just lying to yourself. But he told me that, and I'm thinking, okay, this guy has a roadmap. I'm gonna follow what he does, right?
Right, right. Okay. Well, where I was going to get to was that, well, either way, I'm sure you have much success, but it's that you found a mentor where it minimizes um the, I guess, the earlier mistakes, or you skip some of those
Right.
early on.
Speeds up the learning curve,
Yes.
right? So instead of figuring out all these things on your own,
Right.
they've already gone through it
Right.
and they can show you those things. So instead of taking 10 years to grow the business, it takes you 3 years to grow the business, right? So
Yes.
by year 10, you could overtake them. And I plan
Right.
on doing that, Carson, if he's listening to me,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of it's that simple, and people think that uh, wealthy, successful people are gimme, 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 right? But
Mhm.
there's a what's it called? A diminishing return, meaning if you make $2 million a year, the extra $200,000 you're gonna make has less impact than the person who makes $200 make or $200,000 making an extra $200,000. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
It's diminishing
Oh,
returns,
yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like
Yes.
it makes less impact the 200,000 they make. So they start
Right.
seeking other things, and one of those things they seek is to help others achieve what they've achieved and grow other people and see them succeed, right? Because that has more uh, value
Yes.
than earning the extra 200K.
Well, yes, I think you're spot on, and I think Jim Rohn even talks about this because, like, once when you're like, so it's like the half the water, right? The half water cup. So is it halfway
Full or
full
half
or
empty?
halfway empty, right? So what happens, but then there's the other level, which is, okay, so if your glass is full, can any more come in?
No, right? It will overflow.
Well, yeah, that's where he says, like, it can come in, but that's when you got to pour out
Right.
so new comes in. And so that pouring out,
Okay, I like that.
it's the giving away, the sharing,
Right.
sharing either the knowledge or helping, and whatever that just translates into. That's really just a consequence. But it's like, if people really are pouring in, you don't want your full your glass to just stay full. You want to pour it out, and more will come in, and more will come in, and more pours out.
And that's not to say that you can go to somebody successful and say, I'll work for free. And because even if you work for free, you're still a liability. They have to explain things to you. They have to take the time to, instead of just doing it themselves or having somebody who already knows what they're doing do it for them, they have to explain those things to you. So understanding that even though you're working for free, you're still a liability and you're still drawing on a deficit on their production or
Well, that's where you have to bring in value, right, to the table.
right.
So, like, if you want to learn from them, by even if it's by working for free, you still, if they don't need you, you have to come in with some sort of value, right? And I think I learned this early on. I guess it was more so in my career when we were working in a corporate job, and I moved around a few times, but one of the things that stuck to me was that, like, even if you're like, okay, I want to target going to this department because of whatever reason, and if so, it was like, okay, learn about that department, but also, when, like, learning or wanting to take somebody else's time, you got to bring in value. So then, when the interview appointment time comes, or really, it doesn't even that doesn't even matter, but just overall in life, like, if you come to somebody, a coach or a mentor, and say, I want to learn from you, but this is what I can do for you. If you already come with a list of things that you can do for them, because then if you're like, hey, what can I do for you? Now they have to stop doing what they're doing to say, okay, what do I give them to, well, like what do I assign for them? I don't even know what they can or can't do, versus coming in and saying, hey, this is what I can do for you. Can I work under you? This is what I can provide. Now you don't make them think, because that's the biggest thing really, I think, for them. It's like, okay, well, now I have to sit down and I have to put a plan here for you.
Right.
Right. So
And also, you could ask them, "What can I do for you
yeah, of
too?"
course.
Right?
Right.
So just
Additionally,
feeling people out, because maybe
yeah.
it's totally unrelated, right?
Right.
But maybe you could help them in some way, shape, or form, and you don't even know what that could be.
Right. Right.
So, and it might take you 2, 3, 4, 5 people before you find one, and that's okay too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's I think that might be a process of like the research being, being done with what where do you want to learn from, and
Right? What do you want to do?
what do you want to do, and then say you go somewhere, well, it didn't work out, but it's fine, let me try somebody else. Yeah.
And overlapping that with like, because sometimes you're not going to know where you're headed, but you
Hmm.
see a path and it looks better than the path you're on and you need to take it. Right now, you'll figure out the next step when you're further down the path and something veers off in another direction, right? And you'll be able to spot opportunity, but also be able to say no to things,
Yes.
right? So it becomes more difficult the more options you have, because then you have to make those decisions. Those are really tough decisions, right? When
Yes.
you're getting offered different things and you're like, oh, that sounds good. I know the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but damn, that looks good, right? And then
Right.
say, no, I'm going to stay on the path. It takes discipline. And
Yeah,
so,
it takes discipline, and it does take knowing where you're going and why you're going there. Otherwise, will be easier to get distracted, and which is okay sometimes, but then you don't want to get too distracted
right.
where it shifts a whole direction. But speaking on that note, and I think it even goes hand on hand when we are talking earlier about creating a team in your home to basically it's because you guys got to make like decisions together, right?
Right.
So um having goals, I think maybe sometimes that is what's lacking. It's not like, oh, well, they have a different goal than I do. Sometimes I think most people, I would assume, don't even have a goal at all.
Right.
And so it's not like, well, you have this goal and I have this goal. I mean, that's at least somebody has a goal, right? It's
But
like,
what do I mean, it depends on where you're at, right? Depends on what are you setting goals towards, right? Losing weight, right? Is that making straight A's in school? Is that accumulating wealth? Is that, uh, but you will really, it's important to set tasks and be able to quantify inputs in order to get the correct output, right?
hmm.
So that's something people set goals and then they don't understand what the matrix are on, or matrices, however you say it. They don't understand what the inputs required to get that outcome, right?
Hmm.
So being able to
Yeah.
formulate those is crucial if you really want to set goals and hit them, right? If
Yeah.
you know you consume this many calories and if you burn this many calories on a daily basis, you're probably going to lose weight if you consume
Right.
less than you burn, right?
Yes.
On a daily
Yes.
basis. Same thing with money. If you save more than you spend, right? And you do that over time and you defer gratification, because it's really cool to buy a new car and everybody thinks you're really successful. I used to work at a drive-through bank. I used to work at Wells Fargo. Great company, by the way. Um, the people with the most money had the oldest cars.
Mm.
Always. I mean, always. The people with the flashy new cars never had money in their accounts. Never. It was always barely. Then the guy with the, this was 2011, 2010. The guy with the 1998 Mercedes Benz was the one, had the money in his bank account. So that's something that I think is really, especially nowadays, everybody with social media and shit, it's like everybody wants to look rich. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right?
Yeah.
So deferring gratification, if you can't do that, right? If you can't
It
put
takes
money
discipline.
away and have the money there, because it gets to a point where having like making the investments is funner. Funner's not a word, but I like saying it. It's more fun
Yeah.
than consuming or buying goods, right?
It's like a game.
Yes. And it's more gratifying. Like buying Exxon stock and just seeing it paying you dividends every quarter. It's just a feeling that way more than buying a new pair of shoes or a new car, right? Because it's like that thing is going to continue to grow. And I'm
Yes.
looking forward to seeing what it does.
Yeah. So I think it comes. I think some of it may s- may start by understanding how money works and what a liability is, versus an asset or investments.
And they don't always, it also depends on where you're at in your life, right?
Yeah, but I think it's really important to understand how money works because even at a very early age, kids want to buy things, right? So they have to, if they don't understand, I don't know. And this is actually like a thought that I constantly have, especially now that we have a daughter. It's like under like how can we help them understand how money works, because I feel like most people, or a lot of the population, graduates from high school, and so, and whether you go to college or not, even if you're not understanding how to manage your money, you'll get by until you realize that you don't want to just get by, or maybe you
Or
never ever realize it.
or you realize I don't know how to manage my money,
Right.
right?
Right.
I don't know how taxes work. I
Yes.
mean, you'd be surprised how many people, and they make good money and they don't even know. Like, I'm looking at your tax return, right? And you live with a woman. I'm talking to a man, lives with a woman, has children with the woman, and he's filing his tax return as a single filer. Now, I'm not a CPA, I don't give tax advice, but I know the tax brackets for married couples is higher. The
Hmm.
standard deduction for a married couple is higher. So somebody told him that that's a good idea. The woman can take half your stuff regardless, right? Because you live
Hmm.
together. If she wants to get a good lawyer, she could divorce you even though you're not married, right?
Hmm.
Common law marriage. So why are we not filing as a married couple and taking advantage of the tax code? It's like,
Right.
well, Aaron, I didn't know.
Mm.
Right. But you could Google tax brackets and go look that up and figure it out pretty quick, right? But nobody told him to do that. So
Yeah.
it's like minor things like that. Why don't they teach that in high school,
Right.
right?
Right. I
Instead of who knows what they're teaching in high school nowadays, but why don't they teach that? I don't know. That seems like a reasonable thing. Hey, here's how our tax code works.
honestly, the more I live, the more I question that question. It's like if there is anything, like any like basic kind of sort of class or program in school that teaches people more about how money works and how taxes work, especially for kids that are graduating and about to,
Or how credit works.
how credit
Right. How
works.
many people I see installment
Oh,
loans all the time? Well, I opened an installment loan to build credit. You're going to pay off the installment loan, then the history of account closes and it no longer helps your credit. You need revolving lines of credit, right?
take note.
Of long history. So you want to keep them open even if you're not using them. okay? And
Yes.
you never want to go over 30 or 50% of the max. So if it's a $300 credit card, you never want to charge more than $100, okay?
Mhm.
Maybe you charge $300 and you think you pay it off every month. Well, they might be reporting to the bureaus on a different day of the month, and it's reporting maxed out and it's dinging your credit each month,
Mhm.
right? So understanding little things like that, um, but it's
Yeah.
like another reason why they don't teach tax brackets to high schoolers is because the teachers are in the lowest tax brackets there are, right? So
Yeah.
let's think about it.
I've never thought about it like that.
Do they're W-2 employees. I'm a W-2 employee. They take my money before, and I've paid six figures in income tax before, right? So when I see people filing their Schedule C and they made 100 grand and they wrote off 50 of it on bogus write-offs, it's like with your standard deduction and everything, you're not paying that much in taxes, right? They just hired a ton of IRS agents to go audit people like you, right? They're not going to get Amazon. They're not going to catch Amazon red-handed avoiding taxes. They have a
Right.
military of accountants, right? And not only that, they probably influenced the legislation and wrote the tax code so they know it, right? So it's like, why? Like it just I see it over and over and over again, and it's pretty basic stuff, and we should teach kids about it.
Agreed. Agreed. I think it would help just the world overall because kids won't, or the majority, or a good amount of it anyways, may save a lot of time by suffering, going through it the hard way, by these lessons they have to stumble upon, not by choice, but
Yeah, but there's nothing like a hard lesson,
yeah,
right?
that is true.
I've been thrown in jail. Have you ever gone to jail?
No.
So when you're in a concrete cell, you'll think a little bit, right?
Mm,
So it's like the lessons best learned are the ones that are painful. Otherwise, it's not really a lesson. You won't really learn.
yeah.
So it's like that's like the same thing when you're putting a loan together and you screw something up and you got to call everybody and say, "Hey, I screwed up." Right?
Mm,
It's like those painful moments, that that thing I did, I will never do that again, and I will make sure it never happens again because it was so painful going through the process of having to take that on the chin,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's like avoiding those, and I think as a society, we're breeding kids, we're breeding people that, hey, you're not responsible for anything that happens to you, right? It's everybody else's fault, right? You were genetically predisposed to being big, right? To gaining weights. Therefore, it's not your fault. And
Right.
it's okay to be big. Not only that, it's beautiful, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where does that lead?
Right.
I don't know.
Health. It leads over to health conditions.
Right. And then who does that benefit if you're
But
unhealthy?
but then it's gonna be the government's help for not having the proper. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the government's responsible. They're going to
Yeah.
help you.
So, no, but it's true, right? It is true about like just um like understanding or being educated about whatever it is that is essential to your life, like what affects you. Okay, then go try to be a little bit more educated. And this is not to say like, hey, you got to learn more than, Johnny over here. No, just
Or go get a specialist.
yeah, or that,
Right.
right?
That's why I call Myra when I need to ask her if I should buy this home or hey, what do you think about this? I
Right.
call somebody who knows what they're doing. I don't need to go
Right.
learn how to run comps. I don't need to learn all that stuff. I can depend on a specialist, right? I
Right.
see that a lot too is
Building your team
right, a team of people,
of
right?
people, like
Have an
your
AP
accountant.
person. Have a landscape, have you have know a dentist, you know a doctor, right?
Right.
Not even if they're your doctor necessarily, but you know a doctor and you have a relationship with a doctor.
Yes. Yes. You know where to go when emergency arises. That's kind of like having that 3 to 6 month saving cushion just for emergencies.
Right.
So,
So if you
you're
get
not gonna call your doctor every day, but when you do, you'll know who to call.
and not only that, they know if you're calling them at 9 o'clock at night, there's a reason for it, right? So they'll
Mhm.
pick up the phone or call you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and even and for just the general public, might be like understanding or like having a family doctor,
yeah,
no, just knowing where to go.
right.
You don't want to in whatever situation that is, whether it's medical or whatever, you want to know if something happens, what do I do? And the more you know, the less chances there will be for you to panic because you really don't want to panic. Once you panic, then who knows? Then your next choice is unpredictable.
Yeah, and your mind won't work. When
It
you
won't be able
start
to.
panicking,
Yeah,
your
right,
mind doesn't work. It will play tricks on you, and you have to tell it this isn't real, right? You have to talk yourself out of it because you can freak out, right?
right,
That
right,
and everybody's vulnerable to those things. It's trying like and you can't really anticipate it until you go through something that's traumatic or hey, I need to make a decision now.
right. And what that's just unavoidable, right? Like the challenges in life that come, and you'll have your lessons because we don't know everything. And we just won't.
But protecting your downside that hey,
Right.
if a worst case scenario, what happens in this case, right?
Right. And
It,
it's being prepared, and part of being prepared is you have to seek out for this information. So, you have to understand that for one, it's just accept that you don't know, and you could know more of whatever it is you want to expand on. And then two, it's actually like trying to come up with this information. And earlier I think we got off on a tangent, but you were asking like when it is that I started kind of like getting interested in books, or and I started with saying that it really started with the podcast, right? And so, but and it obviously it's different for everyone, and the timeline is also different for everyone of when in your life, maybe you start wanting to change your mindset like deliberately versus I don't know how I got here, whatever, right? So when you deliberately try to take control more of your life, I would say, I think for everybody is different, but there has to be kind of like that aha moment, and sometimes it could be in the concrete cell, where you actually start thinking, or one of the times, right?
right.
um,
But like you can't you got to take responsibility, ultimate
or
responsibility,
yeah,
right? Like even though it wasn't your fault,
right.
right? Even though somebody else did something, I should have been up earlier and I wouldn't have been in a rush. I should have not drank, right? I only
Hmm.
tapped the car. There was no damage to the vehicle, right? She flipped out and it sent me to jail.
Mm,
But I was drinking and I tried to quit before that and I knew, right, I shouldn't be drinking. So it's like sitting in that cell and thinking, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to do this. I can see where my life's headed. Bad decisions compound, especially with alcohol, and it's socially acceptable to drink. Oh, we go out and we have drinks, right? And everybody does it, and some people feel uncomfortable if they don't do it. But it's like you wake up later, you consume greasy food because you think it makes you feel better, but it really doesn't. It makes you feel shittier. Then
hmm.
you sleep in. Then then your sleep cycle's off, and I mean, that compounds massively, right? I double my income twice in 4 years from quitting drinking,
Wow.
right? I went from 160 third year in the business to 300 to 500 to 626 I made in 2022 or no 2021. Last year made four because the market dropped. I still had a good year, but not as good as before. Now the wind was at my back. The Fed held me out dropping those rates, right? So It's
But you were that's the thing though, that you decide it was really, just timing and putting yourself in that position to receive because that was just like you said, it was like the Fed dropped the rates, what it doesn't even matter because if it wasn't you, it was gonna be somebody else.
yeah.
Right? So you put yourself in a position basically to take advantage and I mean it didn't happen by just wishing and hoping. For one, I mean for one you're trying to break a habit maybe. It sounds like maybe was it a habit? No.
It was more like you're young and everybody goes out and drinks, and then you form habits of drinking on the weekend, right? It wasn't like I was drinking on Tuesday,
Right.
Wednesday, Thursday,
It,
right? But then it's like,
it was like a weekend habit kind of
yeah, but
thing.
then you're drinking on Thursday night and have a couple cocktails at happy hour, and then Friday you're really not engaged in work. Saturday you get hammered. Sunday you're hungover. Monday you're semi hungover, right? So I'm
Mhm.
thinking to myself, I'm only working Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right? I'm only working 3 days a week. Think if worked 5 or 6 days a week. I'm thinking I could I have too much responsibility to myself, to my family, to my future
Mhm.
kids to not take advantage of the opportunity I've been given, right?
Right.
I will look myself in the mirror when I'm 50, 60 years old and think, you fucking idiot. You
Mhm.
could have done anything you wanted to and you fucked it off. I don't want that feeling. That scares me like nothing else. Mediocrity scares me. Now, am I perfect? No, I'm not fucking perfect. Right? Do I still eat junk food and eat a whole pizza and a cinnamon roll? Yes, absolutely. Right?
Right.
Do I do things that are not good? Do I sleep in some days? Do I cut corners sometimes? Yes, but I'm aware of it.
Mhm.
Right? And I take responsibility for it.
Mhm.
At least I would hope to think that I did, right?
Yes. Well, I think that's where results are. You can't just make results.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously you make them by doing, but what I'm saying is like you can't just wish for them and then they happen. Like results are only a product of action, right? So you have to kind of work for it.
And that's how my path kind of went. So I was graduated college in 2010, got a communications degree because I showed up there like, you got to get in a line. Here's the communications. And I was like, my sister did communication. I guess radio would be cool. Went and got in that line, right? I already went to a private school to play football at Division 3 school, and I quit after 2 weeks. It wasn't worth it, but great school. But then I went to Texas State. Um, had about 60 grand in college debt, most of it from the private school, um, Texas Lutheran in Seguin. Good school. Um, $60,000 in debt. I was working at Wells Fargo making 11, 12 bucks an hour, right? And I had people ahead of me that weren't very talented.
Mm,
My managers and nothing against them. There were some
right.
good people there and there's some talented people there too. But I'm thinking to myself, I have clients that come in and I'm a teller and they would talk to me. We would engage. They would come see me. I actually met a girlfriend at the time through her mother
Mm.
who insisted that I went to her birthday party. I mean, called me on the phone. I wasn't in the branch. I was at the motor and she had them patch it into the drive-through to insist you need to come to her birthday party. And I wasn't gonna come, but I guess I'll come now, right? So I'm thinking none of these people really can talk to people or anything, and I don't want to work my way up a corporate ladder, right?
Mhm.
I want to get directly as close to a market as I can, right? I don't want in between people dictating what I can make or not make.
Wow.
My brother married into a well-connected family in the oil field. He started making six figures around the same time as I graduated. He didn't go to school. And he's making that kind of money, has a truck paid for, gasoline paid for by the company. And I'm thinking, I'm making 11 bucks an hour. 100 grand seems like a ton of money. I'm going to go do that. Right. I told my dad, this is 2012. I told my dad, I said, I'm going to go to the oil field. He said, no, you're not.
Mm.
He flat out told me, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, I am. Watch me. Right. Cause I want to be doubted. Now, did he mean he wasn't, there was no malice there. He just like thinking you don't need to do that. You're too talented, whatever his justification was.
Mhm.
Right. I didn't take it the bad way. I took it like, okay, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm going to
Challenge
do it.
accepted.
I had hair down to here, had to stop smoking pot, right? Quit smoking pot cold turkey. Went down there, didn't know an Allen wrench from a crescent wrench. Didn't know anything. My brother went out on a limb, got me a job. First day, I got to go take a drug test. Pull up to the drug test. I'm going pee, and they're like, "Well, we need to take a hair sample as well." I'm like, "No, I have long hair. I've been smoking. I used to smoke pot, and uh, I'm thinking if they cut my hair, I'm not. I already moved down here. Like I moved down to McAllen,
Mm.
right, way down the border. If you're not familiar with Texas, I'm thinking, geez, I can. What am I gonna do? Call my brother. He's like, well, shit, man. Call Scott and tell him, the owner of the company. So I got to call my boss on the first day and tell him, hey, if they take my hair sample, I gave it to him because there's a safety guy taking the test. And he's like, if you don't do it, it's an automatic fail. So I was like, okay. So he calls him and I have to go back up there and get the hair follicle test. But I get down there and I don't know anything. And that's when I first learned that in order to earn money, you have to learn and understand what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to earn until you learn.
Mm.
So spend 3 years in the oil field, long story short, had to switch companies because the people my brother was the manager of a service company. So, there's different service companies do different jobs, right? Like a Shell might own the lease on the well, and then you have a Halliburton who does the pumping, and you have a different company who runs the wire line, and you have
Mm.
different companies that do different stuff. The company my brother worked for, he had a Hispanic. A lot of them were Hispanic. Actually, it was McAllen. All of them were Hispanic. Let's be honest, and they resented him because he's a white boy and he came and he's already my manager. He's only been here two and a half. That's not to take away from my brother, right? He's competent, hard worker, right?
Mhm.
But he did. It's beneficial to the his boss because he has an in with the service company. Long story short, right? So I'm thinking I can't get these. Now, was I competent enough to run my own thing? Probably not, right? But I'm
Mhm.
thinking these guys are never going to vouch for me that I'm able to go run my own jobs on my own. Like,
Mm.
so switch companies, did a harder job than what that would, but I started making money, started saving money, saved,
Saving.
right, saving money, living in a trailer home in Creases Springs, working nights, right? And you're thinking, what am I doing with my life, right? But saved
Is this what
20,
you're thinking at the
yes,
time?
yes, scared,
Mm.
thinking, what am I doing? Right? You're surrounded by good men, hardworking men, but they're not rich. They
Right.
all make 150 grand. None of them are rich.
Mhm.
Why? Well, because they can't save money or they buy ATVs, they buy boats, and then the market drops and then they have to sell them. Right. So unless you own a service company, right, you don't really become wealthy in the oil field. So I'm thinking, what am I doing? A guy I used to get in a lot of trouble with as a kid, Jaden, calls me, hey man, I'm getting in this mortgage business. You should do it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. He's like, man, the people want the loan more than you want to sell it. It's like, you know, a lot of people, you know, realtors, you could do it. So price of oil drops. I quit in March, April of 2015, go directly into school, Champion School of Realty to become a loan officer. Passed my test on the first try, luckily. Get with the company, and shout out to Todd. We don't talk anymore, but he gave me an opportunity to learn. He had a lead generator that owned FHA.org, USDA.org. So we got a bunch of leads from all over the
Mhm.
state. So I could learn through trial and error with people who weren't relationships, and you could burn bridges or screw up and it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Okay.
Didn't know what I was doing. Slowly felt my way through that. A year later, it took 3 months, 4 months to close a deal. But I had 20 grand in my savings, moved back in with my parents at 28 years old, had no money, $60,000 with debt, 20 grand, I guess, because I
Mhm.
saved, and some gold, silver, maybe. Uh, but it's July of 2016, and I should have 5, 6 deals, and I have nothing. I called Jaden again. He's like, let me call, I got a mentor in the core. It's like a sales training deal for loan officers. Let me call him and see who's in Austin, who's crushing it. And we'll call him, or you'll call him. Calls me back, hey, call this guy, Carson Bond. Call Carson. I get his office line. They think I'm going to take an app, right?
Mm.
They think I want to buy a home, take an app. I say, no, I don't want to take an application. Just have Carson call me back. Calls me back in 15 minutes. He's like, yeah, let's go have breakfast Friday. So that's when that happened,
Okay.
right? And at the time I was comfortable. We were going out having cocktails at 2, right? Showing up at 11, cutting out at 2, going to True Lux, eating, drinking martinis. So it's like now I got a whole accountability partner who's
Mhm.
gonna has a roadmap, and that's kind of where everything changed for me. Is finding him showing me the core and the sales train and everything you do with that, and then obviously you got to put the work in from there, right?
Right.
But that's kind of my story. So it's like, and that's what I shared that with
That's
my
awesome.
I shared that with my team the other day. It's like you see where I'm at now, but you don't see the day even for years in loan officer business. It's like, what the fuck am I doing? Am I made for this?
Mm.
Right? Should I just go back to the oil field? It's mindless. You show up, you work, right? You know what
Right.
you got to do every day, at least,
Yeah.
right? There's no doubt. It's a different stress, right? It's
It's
a
more
different stress.
structured, I suppose.
Yeah, it's
It.
more like fear of missing out stress, right?
Mhm.
Fear of there's a lot of I mean, it's a tough job to do just because the physical requirements of doing it. The hot sun, you're on a caliche pad, you're in fire retardant clothing and pooping in a porta potty with a onesie on. I mean, at 110
Mm.
degrees. Uh, anyway,
Yeah. Wow.
but it's
Okay.
like seeing that,
Right.
you don't see that picture, right? You just see me now with I get leads from people I haven't talked to and from a other person who's told somebody. It's like that, those were all one-off relationships, just like the one we had together, right?
Mhm.
It grew and it winds its way. It's like a
Right.
web of relationships.
Right. Right. And it's about nurturing them, right? Like you're here today from Austin,
Right.
and you showed up at for two closings you had here today. One of them with myself, but you went and you met the other realtor, which, I mean, it's been the distance today.
Yeah, it's been a long day. It's been a good day though.
Great day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's translates into, just wanted to point that out because I do appreciate you being here today. And not just being here, but showing up to to basically to represent you, and it just shows you care, and it shows that you are serious, and you're a serious business person, and you're here to get stuff done. And nurture those relationships in what they are, right?
And one at a time,
And one at a
right?
time,
You
right?
like on Monday I'm supposed to call 50 realtors. That's what the theme for Monday is.
Mm.
Now, do I do it every week? No. It's very difficult to do to call 50 people in a day,
Mhm.
right? But I know if I just show up and if I could do half of that, right?
Mm.
It's more than most people do in a week. Call 25 people,
Right.
right? So
That
just setting the bar so high that if you even hit halfway, man, you're going to blow past everybody, right?
that's awesome. That's a great philosophy to live by. To shoot higher, because
Yeah.
even if you come low, you'll still be higher than most.
And higher than what you thought you could achieve,
Ooh, even
right?
better.
Because then that is momentum in itself. When you start seeing things happening and you're like, I can't believe I did that, right? I closed 26 loans in a month one time, right? Think about that. It's like I would have never thought I could do that, right? But until you think you're capable of doing something,
Mm.
it's very difficult to do it. Now, you could doubt, there's always doubt, right? It's not that you're 100% supreme confidence. Now, that's important to have confidence, even if it's the fake it till you make it thing. It's not about buying shit,
Mhm.
It's not about consuming.
Right.
It's about the mindset of you fake the success. You tell yourself you take the future, the feeling of success, and you pull it into the present, right?
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the feeling of having the vehicle, the
S-
car,
So basically, living it in your mind and just waiting for time, like for time till your body catches up, but living it in the
right,
moment.
right.
So you're living it. It's real in your mind. Now your body just has to catch up.
Or the feel, you almost want to feel it's how do you say,
Physiological,
yes,
physiologically,
right? Like it's like
right? Do you meditate?
no, I mean, when I run, I just can't
Okay.
sit there. My mind's like a freaking thing. Like, it's like squirrels everywhere, right? It's like I can't concentrate on one thing, let alone. But I love, like, I used to do a lot of yoga. I haven't been. I need to because my hips and calves are tight. But it's difficult for me to sit in one. Like, I rather read. I rather run.
Yeah.
That
Well,
that's
maybe
kind of
that's within its
fills that gap.
right. Like because it sounds very familiar when it's like you have to envision what you want, depending what it is that you're meditating on. Envisioning it and feeling it.
Right.
So that's why I ask. Is like the terminology is very similar. Um.
Like, if you're gonna take a test, and that doesn't mean you're gonna not prepare for the test. Right?
Well,
That
right.
isn't sidetracking the work.
It's not a shortcut.
Right. But going into the test, if you calm down and you think about how's it going to feel when I look at the test scores and I made the 85 or I made the 92, whatever number that is, how am I going to feel the relief I'm going to have, right? The sense of accomplishment and all those things. I want to feel that now before I go in there, right?
Okay.
Because that can help bring that future into the present. Right?
Yes.
Because time is a moldable thing. We don't know everything as human beings, right? The consciousness and all those things. Mind's very powerful, right? So, and it might sound cheesy and
No,
this guy's full
no.
of shit, but and,
Yes.
and I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I'm pretty hard on myself, beat myself up a lot, right? It's natural for me because I'm like it semi motivates me, right?
Yeah.
Because
I agree. I think I can relate a lot with what you're saying. Because it's almost like it feels like you can do more. But then like the beating yourself up kind of
right,
deal, right? But then and then also like the feeling it um I don't know, like I've been I would say the only time probably sometimes when I go into a state where I almost kind of lose track of time. Even it's like, so I train jujitsu, and sometimes like the bell rings to stop, and like I don't hear it, or we're learning a drill, and it's like timed, right? So it's like you have so much time to whatever. So and then I don't hear the alarms. Like I'm so
consumed. Like, you ain't
consumed, where
even
I'm
think about the
so
work.
in the flow. It's almost like an ecstasy type of feeling where you just I don't hear the alarm. Now it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens often.
And that makes me think about hourly employees, right? As an hourly wage earner, if you're looking at the clock,
Mm,
right? It's like,
right.
first of all, it's very important to get away from what my worth of an hour is, right? Because if you do that, you're never going to be able to get wealthy if you're thinking hourly wage, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
value, right, is what you need to think about. How many people
Value.
can I help? But if you're in a job and you're working and you look up and you're like, holy shit, it's already 2 o'clock. I feel like it's 10:30 in the morning, right? It's like, you're probably doing something right because you just got lost in time. And
Right.
that's because you're so consumed with your work
Right.
that you are actually doing work,
Right.
right? As opposed to,
Yes.
oh man, I got 3 more hours on the clock. Like, if that's how you feel, you probably should get out of that position. Now, maybe
Right.
not now, right? You got to start somewhere. Don't quit, right? But find something else, seek another venture, seek another opportunity, put yourself out there and get out of that because you can't just be an hourly wage earner, right?
Right. Yes, but right.
Forever. At some point you will be, right? But
If you're complaining about it, then I think you made a great point. Like if you love it and you enjoy what you do and you don't even do it almost because of the pay, you just love what you do, then that's great. But if you are saying I love it but or I don't love it, or you just complain about it. See, I think that's the thing. Like if you complain about it, you should do something about it.
sometimes I bitch just to get through the day, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is
Like I
true.
fucking complain. And
Well, I think it's different kinds and I think there's a time and place, right? Because if I sit here and I kind of vent to myself or vent to my husband or vent to my mom, maybe people that I feel comfortable with versus just venting at
yeah,
somebody that just doesn't really care at the line and I'm
Yeah.
holding up the line, but I really want to share, how I feel. I think
right.
there's kind of like a time
Time and
and
a moment.
place and, who, can depending on, what it is or how bad you want to vent. I think it is important and I think it's just it's a human thing like I mean, it's just we're gonna vent,
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's important too, I think, is to, if you have somebody you always vent to every once in a while call them and just say, "How are you doing?"
ooh,
Right?
yeah,
Because you call them you bitch all the time, they don't want to hear it. Like, stop calling me and bitching,
right.
right? Just call me and
Yes.
make a joke and ask me how I'm doing, you know?
Agreed. Yes. 100%. Well, that's the thing, right? Like it kind of all goes in a circle because if you're complaining and bitching constantly, especially if it's the same thing, right? Like especially if it's like
Yeah,
the same
it's
job you've been at for whatever, however many years, but you're not doing anything about it, then that's when that can be like, okay, here she comes again.
yeah.
It's just a CD playing over and over. But that's a whole cycle thing, right? So like if you start complaining about something, and especially if it's like not the first time or second or third, then it might be like, "Hey, trying to get your attention, like we need to change something." Um
And that's it, like, we need to change something,
something.
right? If you're depressed, there's a reason for that, right?
Right.
It's not that you should be happy all the time, right?
Right.
If there's something that's bothering you, you need to find out what it is, right? And
Right.
instead of seeking some sort of cover up
Mhm.
to that, because that's only temporary, right? So I see that a lot too, is like, hey, I'm depressed, I need this, or hey, I do this. It's like, well, that's something your body's telling you something, whether it's your psyche or you're not achieving what you could be achieving, you're not giving your best effort, right?
Mhm.
That's something people beat themselves up because they know they could try harder and do more. And then that
Yeah.
maybe they don't even recognize that as part of the depression, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. There's so many things and I think it's like for each individual it'll be like different, right? So it's like understanding figuring out how to come to that conclusion and sometimes it's like just asking the right questions, right? And or just start asking questions. Maybe like you said, like they're feeling these feelings and they're just trying to escape, right? So then they indulge in other suppressants and
Or stimulants.
or stimulants, yes.
Shout out to
And
Starbucks.
and so, you start maybe at, or even for the people that lie to themselves, I think we're all there at some point. Like you just start justifying, and just kind of lying to yourself. But it's all good in games until it's not, right? And then
And that's when you realize that your face was a little rounder than it used to be and you made a
yes,
change,
right,
right?
exactly.
And was that easy? Is it easy to go to Orange Theory? No, it's not. There's
Right.
probably 8 out of 10 days you're like, I don't want to fucking go
And I
here.
was punishing myself. I said, I'm not a morning person, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to be there at 7 a.m.
Right, you're obligated. Not only that, you
I'm
probably have somebody else who's
I'm
meeting you
like,
there at
it's your
7 a.m.
fault.
So if you then you would let them down, right?
Right.
Accountability
Well,
partners.
you have to sign up for these classes and through the app. And if you don't show up, or if you show up 5 minutes and it's not 6 minutes, it's five,
They'll
literally
start
five.
without you.
Like the moment they start, that's it. You're not interrupting the class. You show up late, even if you missed it by literally 10 seconds. It happened to me. Like, nope, you're out. You're like, that's it. And
Think
s-
about if you ran your business like a realtor like that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, seriously.
Now, do you give grace? And yeah, absolutely, right? People have
Right.
things going on and you'll be late eventually, right? But you probably want to text the person you're going to be late and say, hey, I'm running late, right? Because they might be running late too and you're worried about it. And if you would have communicated, that would have alleviated that whole
Communication.
pressure,
Yes.
right? So that's another thing, right?
Yeah.
We could go off on all kinds of tangents.
And they all kind of circle around, and everything kind of goes around in a full circle. Everything, I think, like even something goes on. Okay, well, you eventually face that aha moment, either by choice, but most of the time it's by a lesson. And then you decide, okay, do you want to keep going that route, or do you want to start making a change? And then you start thinking, but then as you start thinking, you start doing, then you'll face problems. But that's where, if you know how to make choices, you eventually figure out how to just kind of work through those challenges, versus having those challenges say, oh, you know what, they're too, I'm not made for this, and I come back and I don't try anything else, because it's okay to not want to realize, hey, maybe this is not for me. But if you don't try anything else, and you just kind of shrink down and just take what you can get and settle, I think even if you settle, I think even if you say you're happy, I don't know that, because um and it doesn't mean you have to grow somewhere, but it can be like a hobby, it can be anything. But if you just don't, if it shuts you down, I think that's where it gets really dangerous with depression and anxiety, and then it rolls over to health.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
and then at that point you don't know what, and then you just blame it on your age,
Right. Or your genetic makeup.
genetics. Right.
And one of the things that me and my fiance are going through is trying to over communicate, because most of our fights are miscommunication or lack of communication, or you thought they intended one thing or they meant one thing when they really didn't, and you didn't see the full perspective or give them the benefit of the doubt, right? So addressing those issues and then talking them out, as basic and elementary as that sound, is like, hey, here's what I intended when I said that thing, and here's what I thought you meant. You're right. Here's what I wanted to do. Here's why I did this, or here's why I said that. I didn't mean it that way. Right.
Mhm.
So just going over those things and over communicating, I think is healthy in relationships, just because I'm growing tremendously there, right? Because I haven't been married or anything like that. I'm 36 years old, right? So we're getting married next year. We've been together 3 or 4 years. We've been living with each other for 2.5 years. So like learning
Mhm.
her, because everybody has their own issues, their own concerns, their own vulnerabilities, their own
Right.
insecurities, and it's how you handle them,
Mhm.
right? Because sooner or later, you got to give yourself up to somebody and be vulnerable and open to being absolutely devastated and fucking slaughtered by somebody,
Mhm.
right? That's what marriage is, right?
Mhm.
Is ultimately opening up to be hurt by somebody.
Right.
Because the
Right.
only way you're going to share a life and be able to be a true partnership is to do that. Otherwise, it's not really, you'll never really have a deep relationship.
Right.
So that's some of the things I'm going through, right? And I've always been like on my own. So it's always like almost every girlfriend I've had has been like, it feels like you're on your own path and I'm just like coming along with you, or I don't know where we're going. And it's like, well, yeah, all right, I'm going here. Do you want to go with me? I'm going this way, right?
Mhm.
I want you to come with me. Do you want to do you want to come with me or do you not want to go? Right? It's like,
Mhm.
so I've gotten that feedback and I've always been a, l- a bachelor, right? I've
Mhm.
never lived with a woman before I lived with her. So that was a new thing, and sharing a space with somebody and all the then that comes with. But anyway,
Wow. Yeah. So you're definitely learning a lot. But what is it? Were you looking for something in a future forever partner? Were you looking?
yes. Yeah.
What were those what
Um
traits?
as cliche as it sounds, I want a woman who can stand on her own,
Mhm.
right? Because one day I'm not going to be here. So I want her to have the ability, if I were to pass away, to be able to raise my kids and to be able to have a backbone, right? So
Mhm.
somebody who has the ability to stand up for themselves, who can earn a living, even though I want her to probably be a stay at home mom for a portion of her life. Ambition is one, right? Because if I have big dreams and my partner doesn't think any of that shit's possible, you're
Mhm.
never going to be able to achieve that, right?
Right.
Because you have to believe you can achieve, right? You
Right.
have to believe you can do something. As much as it sounds crazy, as much as you may have doubts at the same time, right? You have to believe something's possible in order to achieve it. So that was one of the things. I had a girlfriend previously who was a school teacher, right? And nothing against school teachers, great, we need them. I wish there were more good ones. But she, every time I would bring something up, like, hey, like she loved to do food or she loved to do this. And it was always like, nah, I can't do that. Right. You should start a podcast. And it'll never take off.
Mm.
Right. So it was
Mhm.
like she never believed that any of those great things that could happen to people. Right. And
She wouldn't dream
right.
and
Or she
believe.
would, but she'd think it's just a dream and that you
Okay.
have to win the lottery or you have to
Right.
be right granted
It was too
something.
big.
Right.
Yeah.
Something those are things are just happen to people. They don't put themselves in the position.
Mhm.
But just like you started this podcast, now will it flop and fail? Who knows? Right?
Right.
Could it take off and start getting 20, 40, 50,000 people watching it? Who knows? But
Right.
until you do it and give it your best shot, how will you know?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So don't even to fail before you attempt
Right.
is, I mean, I couldn't take that, right? So the girlfriend, my fiance now, hi Sierra, I love you. Um, she is driven, right? She's very disciplined. Her father was military background. Uh, she's also very smart and can process information and analyze information very quickly. She started learning the piano. She started taking piano lessons, and I told her if you play Alicia Keys, uh, what's the song? Uh, if I ain't got you,
Oh,
I
yes.
think that's
I
what it
I
is.
would sing it, but I'm a terrible singer. But yes, I know which
I
song.
said if you can play the full song, I'll buy you a baby grand piano. Right? And she started learning piano and she did it. And I
Oh,
bought her a piano, right?
yeah.
And now she plays the piano and it's something she does and it's like
Yeah.
at 20 22, 23 years old, she learned how to play the piano. Right now most people learn when they're kids or have it,
Mhm. Mhm.
but that's like
It's a skill she decided to put herself in the position to learn it
right.
regardless of anything.
Right.
It's just
And that's like I know if I learn Spanish, instantly 100 grand. more in my pocket every year,
Yeah.
right? Now I'm just bullshitting myself not doing it, but I know easily $100,000 if I can get a team member who learns Spanish, probably 250,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Instantly.
Yeah. I told you need to get a Spanish speaker on your team.
I know. I
I
have a Spanish client right now, and every time I call him, even though he speaks good English, every time I call him, he wants to get the realtor on the line so she can help communicate. And I'm like, God, I gotta learn Spanish, right?
yeah.
But what did I do in school? I didn't pay attention in Spanish class. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I had to go to Costa Rica to take college credits for communication. I just spent 6 weeks in Costa Rica to get my Spanish credits because I couldn't. I just get.
Yeah. Well, you never know until you know.
Yeah, but it was like seeing her do that. It's like, what could we learn?
Mm-hmm.
What could you learn if you dedicated an hour, 2 hours a week,
Yeah.
right? You could learn anything you want,
Right.
especially in today's world. I mean, like if
Yeah.
you know how to change like a light bulb on your Ford, it's not like it used to be. It's very difficult. You could YouTube it 2013,
Mm-hmm.
2018, whatever your Ford F-150 is, and it'll show you on YouTube exactly what you need to do to replace that light bulb,
Right.
right?
Right.
Every single, almost anything, you can learn it, right? So it's just a crazy world we're living in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's understanding how to utilize the tools, right? Because I think you touched base a little bit earlier how there's so much that we don't know what to do, and it reminded me at the moment, and even now when I started my career as a real estate agent, I remember I was in a training class at the time, and um, there was an agent there that was uh, kind of giving us kind of her story, how she started, and just kind of talking to us new people. And I remember she mentioned you're going to have a toolbox, and as different speakers come in, they're all going to put different tools in your toolbox. And so at first, because we're learning so much, you're going to want to use every tool, but don't do that because you're going to get yourself overwhelmed. Just pick one tool at a time, understand how to use it before you pick up the other one.
Then clean it off and put it back in its place in the toolbox,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Then you know where it's at. You can pull it out when you need
Oh
it.
gosh. Yes. Yes.
But what do most people do? They use it and they throw it back in the toolbox, and it blends in with the other tools and you can't find it.
Blends in. Right, right. Yeah, that's where
That's very interesting, though,
yeah.
that she made that metaphor.
Yeah, and it really did stick with me because yes, of course. I mean, we would have different people coming in and talking to us and teaching us different things and different topics every day. So you have all these tools and they're like, "Well, you can use this app and then you can use this and this is what we use and we can share it with you guys." So now you have your toolbox. It's like, "Okay, I can use all these things." Um and so I would say like if anything, I don't think I was prepared at the time to understand how to utilize all these tools. But at the same time, sometimes you just have to throw yourself, in the water and figure out how to swim, right? But I think if we understand how to make that goes back to understanding how to make choices, right? Because everything is a choice. So understanding how to like having a system. And I think I learned that a lot from my husband because he's so great at like um he's like a systems guy, right? So it's like, okay, we got to do something, whatever that is, doesn't matter, fill in the blank. It's like he has a process to do things from point A to point Z. And it doesn't matter what it is. So for me, sometimes, sometimes there's different people along your life that are like your role models, or because you learn something from them. So I would say if anything, like maybe sometimes if you read it, it's something, but then when you have somebody around you that you see act it out, not just talk it out, but act it out and see it, like that has huge,
In
huge
positive
impact.
ways
Very much so.
and negative ways,
You think so? How so?
like seeing how somebody fucked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you know what not to do.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Learning from them when they made a mistake,
Yes.
and learning through other people's mistakes is less impactful because it doesn't hurt, but it
Right.
speeds up that learning curve as well
Yeah.
and what not to do. So
Yes.
it's like the
Definitely.
yin and yang to everything.
Absolutely.
So what are you into? Like, what do y'all do for fun besides jujitsu and working out and reading?
So we picked up biking or mountain biking, trail mountain biking, a few years ago. And recently Logan picked it up with his, he trains at Descent Athletics, which is a CrossFit gym. And his, I guess his friend, the owner, they've gotten into biking. So that's what we're getting into. I'm kind of
Yeah.
joining in or re retrying that hobby of like just biking. Pickleball. We love playing pickleball.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, um,
I invested in a bar in Austin called Bolden Acres, and that was in 2018 when he had the idea for that, and he had pickleball courts. So he caught that before it went kind of crazy, and that place is
mm,
taken off too. They've like a sports bar with pickleball courts. Pretty cool.
this is just the beginning. It's blowing off like
Yeah.
everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. Even, so we have a membership at another gym where they literally just finished, adding 6 courts, and then they plan on having, tournaments within the facility at lifetime. And then eventually, the trainer, I was talking to him, and he said he wants to eventually, have tournaments with other facilities.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Um, so that's really exciting. We've played it a few times now, by ourselves and sometimes with friends, and so that's
Yeah, it's fun playing doubles, and
yeah, and even singles, yeah.
it's a good game. We played Me and Sierra played tennis a lot too. We like playing tennis. It's fun.
Yeah, we would play tennis.
Oh, you probably look down on pickleball then, 'cause
No,
pickleball's like easy tennis. It's like tennis with training wheels.
my dad built a tennis court in our backyard when we were kids, and we never really played it. They had a basketball goal in it too, so basketball hoop, I guess you would say. So we never really played tennis, even though I had access to tennis all the time. I didn't really start playing until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, with a realtor who wanted to go play once a week, and I started playing with him and learning. Uh, I'm athletic and quick, so I like chasing the ball down, but I'm not very good. I mean, I'm not can't really serve. Never really learned how to serve. Just kind of teaching myself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we're definitely not like, elites by any means. We just kind of have fun.
Yeah, it's a good game.
Yeah, yeah. So we did play tennis for a while and then racquetball for a while. And sometimes we'll pick up these things and then, um like the mountain biking, we're about to pick that up again.
Yeah.
Um we liked watching, shows during our downtime, although sometimes it takes like a whole week to watch one episode. I'm the one that usually ends up falling asleep, but this is like to wind down. That's
What have
something.
you watched recently that you thought was impactful or you enjoyed?
I really enjoyed the, okay, here it comes, like I'm terrible with names. What's this last one, Logan? Oh, Tulsa King. Tulsa King.
Is that about drug dealing or was that about?
Um, kind of, sort of. See, that's where it's really interesting because, uh, it's about, what's the main actor's name? Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, so he's basically, it shows up as he's out of basically, jail after like serving, um for X amount of years for back for somebody else really that committed the crime, and he comes and they kind of just say, all right, just go away to Tulsa,
Don't
right?
don't spoil it. Oh wait, that's kind of part of it. Never mind.
Well, I'm just gonna kind of say what's about a little bit. And so there, goes from like he's nobody, rather like just go over there. He has a lot of money, and he basically starts this whole thing, and now he's like Tulsa King.
Yeah.
So, with
Interesting.
first, it's different. It's a different show, and it takes a good. It's very interesting. I'd say that because I don't know, it's different. Um,
My I have a coach, a mortgage coach, and he lives in San Diego. It's northern San Diego County. It's a little town called San Marcos, and he lives on the highest hill in San Diego County. You can see forever. Like you can see the ocean. It's probably 20 miles away. You can see San Diego, and it's 45, maybe 30 miles away. But you can see Sylvester Stallone owns this hill. He looks down upon it, but he owns this whole hill and has this mansion on this hill. It's pretty spectacular just looking at it from his backyard. It's
my
pretty cool.
gosh,
Yeah,
I can imagine.
interesting story. Him writing Rocky and like going through that process. If you've never heard of like that, it's pretty crazy. Just the
I
him going through that writing and the screenplay and going through the process and then starring in it. And would like to see like a documentary made of him if there isn't one.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah, that would be something. I haven't really dived deep into his life, watch his movies, and stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah, but the show is really really good. I
Have you,
would say I'd recommend it
have
for
you
sure.
watched Your Honor?
No.
It's on Showtime. It's with the guy from Breaking Bad who is Malcolm in the Middle, the dad. What's his name? He's a judge, and his son ends up killing somebody in a car wreck, and the guy he killed was the mobster's son.
Mm.
And like it's crazy because it's like in some situations there isn't the right thing to do, right? Under the circumstances, any route you take, you're kind of screwed, and that's gonna come up. It's a
What's the
pretty
name?
good one. Your Honor,
Your Honor. Oh, Your
uh-huh,
Honor.
like the
Okay.
judge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty good. The second season just finished on that. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. What Breaking Bad itself,
I've
is
never watched the whole thing.
really.
Yeah, I've
Why
watched.
do you think? Like,
I don't know. It's just at some point, it's like I get it. I
okay.
don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay.
I've watched some of it, and I never watched the whole thing.
That was the first show Logan and I ever watched
Yeah.
together. Yeah. It has a sentimental value, I guess. No, but I really did think it was a good show.
Yeah, it was good.
Dexter?
Never watched it.
No.
I like Succession about it. That's coming on. The new season starts Sunday. I think it's season 4. About like Murdoch owns Fox News Corporation. It's kind of like similar to like a conglomerate owner and the family and the kids and who is he going to go out of business and pass the business to him and corporate buyouts and family dynamics.
Okay.
It's pretty good if you haven't seen that.
I haven't.
It's on HBO.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Some other good shows. I feel like we were just talking about Shameless.
Yeah.
It was because we were going through. We are trying to figure out actually because we just finished Tulsa King, and we're like, what do we watch? And we were scrolling through some of the ones that we've already watched. And so, and I was thinking how some like before I felt like there was just a few good shows. Now it's like there's a good amount on the top of the list now of good shows that we've watched. So, do you guys watch shows
Yeah.
together?
She doesn't watch much TV, but I grew up watching TV. So it's kind of like my winding down, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? In the
Yeah.
night. And some of it's just because the couch sits in front of the TV and I want to rest my feet. So it's like you sit down and then you turn on the TV. But what's another one I've been watching or I watched recently? There's one about the making of The Godfather. It's on
Oh,
Paramount.
um, Logan was talking about that one.
It's good.
Okay.
It reminds me of being a loan officer.
Mm.
Like constant problems, and then you got to working with people, molding shit into like the meat grinder, forcing it in sometimes.
Mm.
And like constantly problems coming up and solving the issue, and then you think you're okay, and then another issue appears, and then it's just constantly the amount of things they had to overcome. Like you go watch that, it's crazy. Like overcoming the mob, overcoming local governments in New York didn't want you to film there. I mean, it's just crazy.
Mm. Okay.
That's a
There's some good ones.
Logan. Did you watch that one about the making of The Godfather? No, you haven't seen that. That's a good one,
Yeah.
and you can knock it out pretty quick. It's not crazy long.
Okay. That sounds like a good one. Yeah, we normally that's one of the things we almost always it's rare maybe if there's like a long podcast or something, but it's almost rare. Almost every night we have dinner. We make that I guess a priority to have dinner together. And then afterwards then we lay if we have time on the couch, we'll be on the couch. Lately we kind of rearranged our living room, so we pushed all our um couches to the side so that Maddie has more room to walk in her walker.
Yeah.
So now the living room is not as cozy as it used to be right in front of the TV, but so now it's most of the time we go to the bedroom and just kind of have dinner and then go get ready to bed, and gives Maddie some time to wind down, and then we'll watch a show. Um, and it's really kind of my favorite time of the night because I usually lay on Logan's lap, and then he'll scratch my head
Yeah.
every night. So like this is my favorite part of the day, I would say. And I've been saying it, and we've done something similar to that like that since we've been together, which is like 8 years now. Well, 7.5 because we barely hit 8 years together, and we moved in together like 6 months in. So,
That was pretty quick.
yeah,
Although me and Sierra moved in together pretty quick too. Yes, you could say.
I got kicked out of my mom's, and Meyer had a house. So I'm like, hey,
Yeah. Hey, sugar mama. Hey.
he did get kicked out for staying at my house so many times. So
Yeah.
more than he was allowed to.
Your mom's religious, or what was the reasoning behind that?
no, my mom. Well, I mean,
Yes and no, but
she kind of, yeah.
yeah.
It
Oh,
was not
what
religious purposes though.
no, I don't even remember. What was the?
It
It
was
was like I had like rules, but well, because I was like, I had like, I had an apartment. I was in a relationship. Like we broke up. I moved back in with her, my mom, and then she like was like, "Here are your rules for staying with me,"
Yeah.
type thing. And then I broke them.
yeah, one of them
But
was
hey, it worked out.
it did. He couldn't stay. Oh, he couldn't sleep anywhere else more than 3 times a night. So you can stay anywhere else like more than 3 times a night, a week.
We.
And so he was like at my house
So
almost
she
every
just don't
day.
want you running wild and
Yeah.
coming
Yeah,
home when you want to.
yeah.
That's reasonable.
And so yeah.
That's something that like my parents gave me too. Is like, hey, we don't have the means to support you, but you could always come stay here, right? You could always fail and come back home. So just having that safety,
Right.
I think that allowed me to do a lot of things that some people
Yeah.
aren't capable of doing because they don't have that resource.
Right.
And like that's something I admire them for.
Yeah.
It's just giving me that, hey,
That
I
room.
can't give you money and I can't give you these things. But I can always, you can always come here and rest your head at our house.
Yeah.
Right? So that's something I want to be able to give to my kids as well. Like I'm
Mm.
not paying for your college, period.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I'll pay for you to go on a European vacation for 6 months before I pay for your right. Because you'll learn
Right.
more in that 6 months than you will at 6 years at college.
Yes. Well, I heard a really good point, like especially for parents that say, and I know nothing. I'm just kind of just sharing what I think, right? So there's some parents that won't say invest their money in income producing things, or even just save it for retirement, or have some sort of retirement plans for themselves, right? They'll say like, well, they'll use maybe sometimes a retirement money to pay for their kids so that their kids don't have that as a burden, right? But then if it's not that, that was that, right? But then what he kept saying was that, like, because if you don't take care of your own retirement plan, whatever that means to you, um, and you think your kids are gonna just take care of you if that's the plan, well, that's not really good plan, because what if your kids just kind of say sorry, right? So essentially you're not kind of taking charge of your own.
You have to put your own oxygen mask on before you help somebody else put theirs on,
Right.
right?
So when he said, yeah, because you're not planning, or you're disregarding your retirement in hopes of something, and I mean, nothing is guaranteed. You have to secure or figure out what your retirement planning is going to look like. Versus trying to say, here, don't suffer, and then expect them to be the ones that save you at the end.
Right, but it's
Or
the suffering that the growth happens, right? If I
right.
would have graduated college and my parents paid for it,
Yes.
would I have gone felt the need to go to the oil field and step out of my comfort zone, right?
Right.
Because I knew if I would just kept making 12, then they bumped me up to 13, right?
Right.
$13 an hour. I'm thinking I'm never gonna get ahead, right? I'm
Mhm.
never gonna pay off the $60,000,
Mhm.
right? Let alone have a place to call my own and assets and
Right.
wear what you want to wear, eat what you want to eat, live where you want to live, drive what you want to drive,
Yeah.
right? So that was one of the things, is like putting your back against the wall and going through the trials and tribulations is part of success. And to eliminate that, if you eliminated all the rainy days, what are the sunny days,
Right.
right?
Right.
They're just another day. There has to be ebbs and flows in life.
Well, the thing too is that even if that's what you wanted, like, reality is that there's ups and downs, you know, always. And so, um the less you know, and like, sometimes, like, yes, like, the learning, some of these lessons are best learned through these moments, and these moments are just, they're gonna happen, right? The question is, where are you at? Like, are you making dumb mistakes, or are you actually improving, making mistakes that are improving you from yesterday? These are all new ones.
And that takes reflection and analyzing what you're doing too. And a lot of people don't want to do that, right?
When did you start kind of figuring this out, like, being
Well,
aware, and putting some, like, when was your aha moment
I
to?
think a good place to start is sports, right? Because if you want to get better at sports, you have to analyze where your weaknesses are, what you're doing well, right?
Mhm.
Where did you make a mistake? Watching film, saying, hey, I could have done this, I should have, right? Also having a short memory, because you can't beat yourself up too much, right? So, okay, I made a mistake here and now I wipe the slate clean and let's go. Understanding and knowing what you did wrong, but also forgiving yourself and having the ability to free yourself up to make the next play, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're still dwelling on yesterday's mistake, you're going to make another mistake because you're uptight. You have to be in a loose state, a relaxed focus, right? So I think sports played a big part of that, understanding where that is and wanting to get better. And then also getting in a position where you control your own destiny, right?
Mhm.
As a realtor, you control your own destiny.
Mhm.
Nobody is going to, that the market has ups and downs, but there is fast or famine and feast in every single market. There's going to be realtors this year that have the best year they've ever had,
Mhm.
while 40, 50, 60% of the realtors out there are saying, oh, it's a down market. Nobody wants to buy. It's
Mhm.
like you're lying to yourself. There's transactions taking place. How many transactions took place in the state of Texas today?
Right.
I would guess thousands, thousands of
Yeah.
transactions, if not tens of thousands. So why can't you get 4 or 5 of those?
Right.
Right?
Right. And I think that goes back to where you were saying about like believing it and feeling it.
Right. And why can't you get 4 or 5 of those a day? Why can't you close 100 loans a month?
Mm.
Right? Now,
Right.
what would that look like? I would have to be a lot better
Mhm.
at managing my time, managing my people, right? In my current capacity, I'm not capable of doing that. But I know if I made the right steps and develop not only myself, but the people around me, that's doable and it's within the realm of possibilities, right?
Mhm. Right.
But not in my current capacity, not the person I am right now. I will have to get better to do that,
Mhm.
right? So, in what ways? Maybe it's learning Spanish, right? Maybe it's being more patient with my team. Maybe it's pouring more into them. Maybe it's replacing them. I don't know, right?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Right.
Maybe you have to take a step back before you take a leap forward. So, wanting to get better, right? If you want to get better, you have to analyze where you're at.
Yes. Yes. It's like self-investment is always going to be it's I think it's just there's no way around it actually. I think with self-investment, with self like understanding
Like, what are your weaknesses?
right.
No,
Are
you.
you
I'm
asking
asking.
me?
I'm asking you. What are your weaknesses as a realtor, as an individual, as a wife?
I think it's um balancing life with the goals and time, I would say. Because sometimes, I may think, well, I need to do more in, say, this area in real estate. Or I need to work more on my real estate and growing my business, right? But then, that I may encounter it's causing more disagreements with my husband because maybe I'm not being present. Maybe I'm too stuck with like what I'm doing that I'm even being rude. I'm not even I'm
You're not even there.
distant. I'm distant and not even there. And not only that, I can be rude. So now I have to like realize that, okay, and understand it and be like, well, okay, well, there's about, I'm not doing that. And then I realize I start doing things and it's like, okay, I need to make sure so like the big thing for me this year is keeping track or right having goals not just in my head but actual goals in somewhere where I can track it. For example, I use Notion and knowing what those are going to be because sometimes I would say, well, I think this is where I want to grow it. Well, no, I'm going to grow it over here. Well, no, now I'm going to focus time here. So and then so that's where having the goals written down and constantly looking at them. So like that's one of my things every day. It's not only like reading more and expanding like my knowledge and my ideas, um, but also like reading my goals so that because it's easy to get distracted, or, you kind of find something shiny or something that might work or something that somebody sells it to me really well. And then I go off on a tangent. So I realize that to prevent that from happening as often, I just need to be more dialed into my goals. And and especially now that we have a lot more going on, for example, we have this podcast now that not only do I want to grow, but I do care about it and I love it. I love talking I love talking to people like you, just people overall and learning because I learned from every single person that sat on that chair. I've learned something. So I care about this and I love it. And so, it doesn't even like I do want to grow it, but more than anything, I want to become a better speaker. I want to become a better listener. I want to be able to ask better questions. And even just from reviewing my own podcast, I feel like I've I feel like I've already learned some, and in multiple things, not just in me listening to myself and how I'm structuring a conversation, but also even I'm learning a skill that I didn't even know that I am. Like I had to, I'm like learning how to, um, like even create content or even review things. Now I'm reviewing things and I have to write down titles and descriptions, and that's making me write and get more creative and get to listen to the story. So it's like this whole thing, right? And
And
then
it
you
can
have real
feel
estate.
overwhelming if you look at it like, oh my God, so much stuff I have to do.
Right. But that's where knowing what you want to do really helps, because to me, it's really exciting. It's like it's even just doing it. I would say even just being here today, like being sitting in this chair and doing it, like it's worth every other step. Like everything else has to happen. And sure, maybe I don't like it's not exciting for me to sit there and think about what title and description I'm gonna use for the podcast that's gonna try to draw attention so that people click it and listen to it. But, I don't always look forward to that, although that is teaching me a lot, right? And but I do it for this really, right? Because
So like uh power washer or water sprayed at a high pressure can cut you in half, right?
mhm,
But if it's dispersed in a different way, it can be like a massage, right? So that's kind of like your
right.
focus, and you got to realign that always,
Mhm,
especially when you're looking at your goals because they feel overwhelming. But really, it's about what can I do today,
mhm.
right? Can I
Yes.
have success today? What does that look like?
Right.
30 outbound calls, right?
Right.
Maybe I stretch,
Right.
eat semi healthy meal, right?
Mhm.
And spend alone time with my significant other where I have undivided attention, my undivided attention,
Right.
right? So if you can quantify things that if I just do these things today, tomorrow is yesterday, right? Yesterday was yesterday. Tomorrow, I don't know, right? Because if you
Right.
think about, oh, I gotta get 50 realtor relationships, I gotta drive 50 leads a month, I gotta close 10 deals to get paid. It's like it gets overwhelming, right? So just
Right.
breaking it up into minor things that you can handle
Right.
and checking those boxes every day, I think that's something that I try to focus on is just having a win today. If you line up enough wins in a row, that's what success looks like.
Yes. So when one of my podcast guests, I actually he was a supervisor of mine when I used to work at the corporate company I was telling you about, and um, he's he's very knowledgeable and he's very philosophical, right? So a long time, like 10 years ago, he told me for every day to fill the box. Every day is like a box, and the goal is to fill it up as much as possible so that at the end of the week you have most of those boxes filled. At the end of the month you have most of those boxes filled. You're not going to have them all filled, but you want most of them to be filled. And then at the end of the year, you want most of them to be filled, right? So when he put it like that to me, like 10 years ago, that made so much sense. That like it was like now the game became um fill the box with as much as I can do to like get ahead. It kind of became like I don't know, it's
A way of measuring it or
yeah,
a game to play in order to keep score,
right.
right? Just to
And
see
be
if you're winning.
aware, and being conscious of what you're doing to fill the box.
Right. And how many people don't do that or aren't conscious or don't are floating through
Right.
life and not aware and don't even think they need to be aware or what awareness looks like, right? So, and
Right.
not that we're perfect,
No, but
right?
no, that's the thing, right?
Right. We want to get better though, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely far, or I am, far from perfect. And you mentioned like my flaws, or I don't know where the question started, like some of the stuff I need to work on or
yeah, what are
something.
your
My
flaws?
flaws,
What are
yeah.
your not your flaws or your your
My
weaknesses,
weaknesses.
right?
Right, right.
Like I'm
So,
too emotional. Like I'm high on highs and I'm down on downs, right? And I need to be able to level that out and not get too high on the highs when you're doing very well, right? Knowing that, hey, life will snatch you up when you think you got everything under control. That's usually when life snatches up and grabs you by the back of the head, right? So
mhm,
that's one thing. I'm not a very organized person, so I need to hire people that can help me stay organized. Um, things like that, right?
mhm,
So I'm very good at relationships. I'm very good at selling on the phone. Uh, I'm very good at putting the puzzle together and processing different variables and understanding one, two, three, four steps ahead, knowing what could go wrong on the deal or whatever that might be. So doubling down on those things, right? And then having people to help you. You want to get better at the things you're not great at, right? But you're
mhm,
never going to be great at the things you're not great at,
mhm.
probably, right? So you don't want to
Right,
spend too much time trying to fix those problems, but mitigating the downside, right? Just staying hedged or being able to protect
right.
your worst case scenario kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that, and I think it's as as you have increased your value, of like what you do and how much value you bring to the market, um, and you start seeing the results of that, um, then it'll allow you to basically mitigate these tasks to other where you understand it enough, but you'll never be a perfect like or organizing, right? It's
If you're spending too much time organizing, well, you're not doing the things that probably drive
Mhm,
business, right? So how
mhm.
much time do you want to spend organizing, rearranging lists of people to
Right,
call? Just pick up the fucking phone and make the call, right?
right.
Pick up the phone instead of writing the list down. Let's just start calling people.
Mm,
Now, does that mean you don't go with no plan and just start calling people? No, but it doesn't have to. Everything doesn't have to be perfect to start, right?
everything doesn't have to be perfect to
And that's what
start.
a lot of people think they do is like, I'll wait until all the lights turn green, then I will go, right?
Mhm,
And it's like, no, you need to start going, and then inevitably lights will start turning green, right?
mhm.
It's one of those things. What was the saying? You don't need to. I'm lost for words now. It's like you don't need to know everything to get started, right? It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I will wait until I get everything in line and then I'll go and start selling it, right?
Right,
It's like, well, why don't you start selling it? And as
right,
soon as you book out, then you go get what you're selling, right? You don't need to
hmm,
get inventory, right?
right.
You don't need the inventory. You can go make that,
Yeah,
right? You don't
right,
need to go store paint in a facility, right? In order to do business painting, right?
right.
Go sell the job, then you'll worry about the paint and what you're going to do with the
Mhm,
paint, right? And I
mhm,
see people that do that over and over again. They thinking, all right, well, I got to do this in order to get here to do this,
mhm.
right? It's like, no, build it out and then you'll fill in the back
Yeah,
side, right? You'll catch up with what
right.
you're selling. Now, is that to say you don't want to overextend yourself? And a very successful person told me one time, I asked him what the key to success was, and he said, do what you say you're going to do. That's simple, right? If you tell somebody you're going to call them tomorrow. If you say you're going to show up somewhere. If you say you're going to
Right.
do something, do it, right? Does that mean I'm always 100% I do everything? No, right?
But that's the standard.
Right. Hey, I'll get that fee sheet to you this afternoon, right?
Mhm.
Shit, I'm already left the office. Do I just not communicate with them or do I say, "Hey, I'm sorry, the day flew by. I couldn't get the fee sheet out to you. I'll have it out to you first thing in the morning."
Mhm.
Right? Just communicating to them,
Right.
"Hey, I let it slide," but acknowledging that, "Hey, I'll have it over to you." Like that simple communication. "Hey, I'm running late.
Yeah.
I'll be there in 15 minutes. Oh, I'm running late too. No pressure, right?
Right.
Taking it back to just over communicating.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So what are you some of the exciting things you got going or looking forward to? I know you got a wedding coming up.
A wedding? We're going to Punta Mita. It's like by Puerto Vallarta next week for President's Club. Guild's flying us out there at the Conrad Hilton there. That should be cool.
That'll be fun.
Um, we like to travel. Um, so probably have a vacation this summer. We might go to Montana. Uh, Sierra's girlfriend's getting married in Rome, so we might go to Italy, just
Mm.
depending on what we want to do. Uh, so I love to travel,
Yeah.
going different places, different meeting different people, having deep conversations with strangers, right?
Mm.
Is fun.
Mhm.
So that's one thing I look forward to is like going different places and seeing different things, eating different food, meeting different people.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Well, I got to say like I really admire your work ethic. It's just the way like you don't explain you didn't explain to me or you didn't explain like what you're going to do, you just do and it shows which is why I love sending people your way every time that I can. Meaning sometimes they just prefer somebody that speaks Spanish, right? And so
And that's why I need to learn Spanish.
but I know, and I'm being 100% honest with you. Like I know when I send them over to you that that you're gonna exceed even their expectations. They're gonna be taken care of.
If
You're
they
gonna get the job.
just giving them a plan, right? A lot of people don't know if they qualify. They don't even know what they need to do to qualify. And it's like, here are the certain steps. Your credit's not really in a position to buy. If you did these things, right,
Hmm.
6 months down the road, let's talk and we'll re-pull your credit and see where we're at, right?
Right.
Just giving them a game plan. There's so many loan officers out there don't even do, oh, you don't qualify, sorry,
Right.
right?
And that's like that added value. You send updates twice a week all the time.
And just that's that communication aspect of things, right? Is sending a Tuesday status update, even though sometimes it's generic and it's not that informative,
Or
just
doesn't change, but
right, just touching base with people and they okay, we're waiting on the appraisal. It's due back next week. Okay. Right,
Right.
knowing where you're at. Just because it's
Yes.
a weird process and people don't know it. And then you
Right.
use jargon and acronyms and things that they don't know what's going on. What's a CD? What's an LE? Right? All these things, they don't know what they are. And it's like, hey, there are no dumb questions. If you want to go over this line by line, we can do it. You let me know if you'd like to do it. Right? So just
Right.
explaining those simple things to
Yeah.
them and letting them know there are no dumb questions, right? That's how I got where I'm just by asking a ton of dumb questions. I used to have a processor named Angela. She was like, new loans, knew how to structure what guidelines and what didn't fly,
Mm,
right? And I would go into her office every hour, right? And be like, hey, well, I have this deal and I don't know how this works, right? And she would like have to stop what she's doing and she would teach me. I would go in there again, right? And it's like, hey,
mhm.
Aaron, I can't help you right now. You need to come back in 20 minutes. Let me handle what I'm doing. Okay, okay, I'll be back, right?
Yeah.
So just asking dumb questions because you never know what you might learn, right? And you might have
Right.
thought you knew, but you didn't know, right?
Right. Right. Which and sometimes they don't know what options they have. Or like even like what you said, even just the lingo itself, it's like something they have to learn aside from, what does lingo mean and do.
And
Eh,
you can give them too many options,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, then they're overwhelmed with choices.
Now
And
they're
it's like, I
confused.
know what's not only doesn't necessarily mean it's the best choice, depending, and that's where you got to talk about goals and what hey, what is your goal with this purchase,
Right.
right? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
because it's a lot of times it's like, well, I want to buy an investment property. Okay, but you don't have enough money to buy an investment property, and not only that, you don't own a primary residence. So why don't we
Mm.
start you with a home? You live in it for a little while, then you could turn it into an investment property and buy another home. If I were 18 years old right now, you know what I'd do?
Mm.
I would go, I wouldn't go to college. I would go find a plumber, electrician, somebody who has a specialized field of knowledge that we need more plumbers, we need electricians, we need people in those fields, right?
Mhm.
And learn that 2 years, save up money, right?
Yeah.
Become a master electrician in that process,
Mm.
buy a primary residence. Boom, I'm 20 years old, I got a primary. Now all my buddies who go to college, they pay me rent. I have 3
Mm.
bedrooms, right? And they pay me rent, right? Then in another 2 years, I buy another primary residence and I rent that one out either to my same buddies or I buy another one and rent it out to whoever. I don't
Mhm.
want to be a landlord, Aaron. You pay a property management company 7, 8%. So $1,000, you pay them $80 a month to manage the property. You don't have to be a landlord, right?
Right.
Then you do it again at 23, 24. At each time you enhance the property, minor changes, minor things. You don't have to pour money into it. 24, 25, you buy another one. Now you have 3 properties and there are 2 of them rented out and you have equity in all of them. By the time your friends are graduating school with $80,000 of college debt, no useful skills, you have 3 properties and you have a ton of equity and you have money in the bank and a specialized field of knowledge, right? Think about that. Now, who's doing that? Probably not a lot of people.
We need to play a repeat on that a few times and take notes. Seriously.
Think about it. If you
Yeah.
were 30 and you could have 3 or 4 homes, right?
Right.
And then you hire and you build your own electrician business, maybe using the equity
Right.
from one of the properties, rates drop, whatever, you refinance it,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
never sell. You sell, you pay taxes. All you do is you get more debt, right?
Right.
Somebody else pays the debt.
Mhm.
The tenant pays the debt, right? Are you cash flowing on every property? Maybe not, but you get tax deductions, you get depreciation, you get all those tax advantage things for being a property owner,
Yes.
right? So
Right.
simple things like that could change somebody's life instead of going down the you got to go to school to be successful. I don't know about you, but were you fed that shit?
I was.
I
Yes.
mean, high school counselors and the whole freaking thing is like, if you don't go to college, you're probably going to be a complete failure and uh, not really amount to anything.
Yeah, so I did hear that quite a bit, but I what I saw was different because, coming from a Hispanic family, background where a lot of a lot, if not most, um, that came here to the U.S. came here without even knowing the language. Most of them don't even have a boss. They run their own show, whether they're contractors and they're running their own job sites or whatever it is. And they were able to save and improve their lifestyle, and it showed. So when people would say you'll be nothing without school, I knew that was not true because I was seeing it, I was living it. I mean, it's like I they
And
couldn't tell me.
that's a hard living, right?
Yeah.
Like like building homes is not easy,
Right.
right? It's hard work. You got to wake up early. You got to sweat. It's hard. Being a plumber is not a glamorous job,
But you get to the
right?
point where you get to be the boss of the plumbers and the
Right.
boss of the electricians. And now you get to manage the team, and they can come to you because you've been through it. Like, if you decide to learn, to be an electrician and you go do the hard work, and then you eventually evolve to now you have people working for you. Like, for example, even, we don't have to go so far. You have your team, right? So you've asked all the questions you were asking, that processor every 20 minutes, all those questions.
Right.
That's your journey. So now when these other your team has questions, they come to you because you've been through it. You're their next best. You're their leader, basically.
And I might not know the answer, but I can figure it out very quickly, right? You
Right.
just go dig into the guidelines. You go
Right.
dig into the material. You pull it up and you control F and you search keywords and you find it, then you
Right.
read it and you read it again because it's all kind of legal jargon.
Mhm.
So you have to read it and understand the intent of the
The
guideline,
intent.
right?
Mhm.
What are they trying to uh there's reasons for the rules, right?
Right.
Whether they're bullshit reasons or misconceptions, and that's another story, but
Yeah.
it's just like hiring people is leverage, just like the loan is leverage, right? You take 5% down on a $400,000 home, that's $20,000. Okay. Over the last 30 years, homes have appreciated nationwide about 4%, including '08, '09, right? Let's
Mhm.
take 2% appreciation, completely conservative, very conservative numbers. Okay. The $400,000 home goes up 2% a year. Okay. In 5 years, that's 10%. The $400,000 home is now worth 440. You put $20,000 into it. Now you lived in it. I understand you pay the mortgage, but
Even more than that because it compounds.
right. But your initial investment of
Yes.
$20,000 is now $40,000. It
Right.
doubled. Is the stock market going to double in 5 years? Now, with Yellen and Powell in charge, it might, because they might just full press print money until the whole thing breaks. But there's no other investment vehicle that you can do that with, let alone get
Mhm.
the tax deductions and all those things, right?
Right.
Right now, a big thing I'm seeing, and I love showing it to people, is when they're making that 250 range and you jump from the 24% bracket to the 34% tax bracket, and then you take the itemized deductions on interest, right? Let's say you
Mhm.
buy a $600,000 home, the itemized deductions, $40,000 in interest, plus maybe 10K is the max in property taxes that you can deduct. So you're looking at 50 grand. So you subtract 50 grand from the 225 at 34% tax bracket, and it saves them $20,000 in income tax. It's like then the increase in payment is a lot more manageable, or it's a lot more understandable, or a lot more beneficial. Now, do you buy a home for tax benefits? No, it's like a consolation prize, but
Right.
it is another thing that people making a lot of money don't even consider, right? So just
Mhm.
explaining to that somebody, if they're on the fence, the 4%, the 5% down on a $400,000 home, right? And
Right.
then looking at the tax benefits, you sell those two things and they're like, "Okay, I'm buying.
Right.
I don't care if it's 7%."
Right,
Right?
right. Yes, yes. And I think you have just a great I love the way you work because you even said you get to understand what it is that they want to do. You have and you understand the fact that they need information, but too much might get overwhelming. So that's what makes you such a great lender and so great for me as a realtor to work with and hundreds of more obviously people that enjoy working with you because I think we were talking about this earlier about how this industries or just providing a service just kind of puts you in front and you get to meet a lot of people like we've been working together but we just got to meet each other today and it's like I was saying how when you start in I guess
Right. When we had me and the client that we initially, I said, okay, it was back in when things were still a little crazy, multiple offer competitive. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to call the listing agent and I'm going to sell them on our ability to close the loan.
right,
You're like, hmm. I bet that
right,
like something in your mind went, this guy is a
well,
little different. He's taking
yeah,
initiative and telling me he's going to do that to help win the deal.
right,
Now, it was more winning the deal, yes, but also winning you, right?
right,
Winning you as, because I'm not going to say, hey, Myra,
right,
send me all your business. I would love to work with you.
right. But
Right.
that's you providing value.
Right.
Right. And so that's where it goes down to, right? Because like you're in the business, you meet a lot of people, and like I was saying earlier, a lot of people are good or great even. But then you have some that are just better.
And that's a development, right? It wasn't always that way,
Right.
right? And
Which is
and
hence the whole conversation.
hopefully tomorrow or next year or 2 years down the line, I'll be better then. Like if I listen to Carson on the phone, my boss, it's like, man, he's eloquent, he's concise, he's brief, right? There's
Mm,
brevity, but he has a lot of impact,
mm,
right?
hmm.
So it's like, man, I could get better, right?
Right.
So when my people listen to me, they're like, God, Aaron's way better than I am. And I'm thinking, and I'll tell them, did you hear him on the phone? Like sometimes the door will be open, you can hear her. Yeah. I was like, like, you soak it up,
Mm.
soak it up. Because you can take that and you can pull from it, pull from here, pull from there, pull from a little bit, listen to everybody, but follow nobody, right?
Hmm.
Make your own decision.
Right. Right. So yeah, I definitely admire your work ethic. You didn't tell me. You didn't say this is what I do. You just did, and I saw what you did because you did. And you provide value, and you're serious about business, and when it's business time, it's business time, and we're there to get a job done, right? And I feel it. You talk
I,
about
I,
feelings.
I like it and I want to be there, right? But I much rather be at my house and chilling or running or reading or being a flaneur, just relaxing and
Mm,
drinking coffee, reading a book. I'd rather be like I'd rather be doing other things, but I know this is the vehicle in
mm,
which I can obtain generational wealth, right? So until I find a game that's better suited and can grow faster,
right.
I'm gonna try to master this game the best I can and focus on one thing,
Yeah.
uh, and really pursue that and try to perfect it as possible, as much as possible.
Right, right. And essentially I think, if I'm hearing this correctly, you're just improving yourself every single day. And we talked about like good habits and bad habits, and bad habits every day may not seem a whole lot, but every habit's every day for 6 years, then you see it.
Right.
So I think we're definitely evolving, and I'm grateful for one that you're here today. I'm glad
Thank you
I
for
got
having me. I enjoyed it.
to
It was
work with
fun.
you. Yes,
I
yes.
did it for my own self-interest too, right? Because
Right.
I'm gonna get people are gonna listen to this,
Right.
right? That I would probably never meet. It
Right.
also gives me the ability to get better
Mhm.
at articulating ideas and verbalizing things and communicating, right?
Right.
If I want to be a public speaker, you better speak publicly,
Right.
right? So even though it
Right.
makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yes, 100%. So, I have one question I ask every single one of my guests, and that is, what is your personal definition of happiness?
Hmm.
What does that mean to you?
Feeling like I gave it my best attempt, like I left it on the field. That's what that means to me,
Beautiful.
right? Whether I reach my potential or not, I want to know that I at least gave it my best effort to reach my potential and I didn't just spoil my opportunities, right?
I love it.
If I can sit back at the end of my life and think I did a pretty damn good job,
Mm,
could have done better in certain areas, right? I could have done this, I could have done that, but overall I feel like I reached my potential, right? If your optimal being was going along the same path, right? If you made every decision right, and it's weird because some bad decisions lead to things, right? So it's like life happens.
mm-hmm.
All the best decisions aren't always the best way to go, right?
Right.
It's sometimes adversity brings out the best in you.
Right.
So, but if your optimal person at the end of the life of your life, what would they look like? Right? If
Right.
you're standing in front of them, are you at least 80%, 90% of that person? Right? Is
Right.
the 10-year-old self looking at you today and thinking, God, that guy, that's kind of my hero,
Right.
right? Or would they be like, what happened to you?
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's what happiness is to me, is knowing that I'm giving it my all.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you again, Aaron, for being here. Are you on
Absolutely.
social medias or anywhere that people, or
Um,
how can
I have
people
an
find you?
Instagram, but I haven't been on it since August. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not really on there
We'll
much.
provide
Yeah,
your application link
sure.
on the
Or you can call me. My
description.
cell phone's 512-517-7365.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. Thank you.
It was nice meeting you in person and coming down. So we enjoyed it.
Yes.
Thanks.